Don't call it a comeback because there's a pretty good chance Andy Dalton not going to finish the season as the starter for the Carolina Panthers. But Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket, is who we got now. If you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you got to feel at least mildly better about that, right? Bryce Young has sucked. He sucked all last year. He sucked the first 2 games this year. But with Andy Dalton now taking the helm as the starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers for an unknown amount of time, what do we really expect we're going to get out of Andy Dalton? What do we really think this team is going to look like with Andy Dalton? Well, that's what we're here to talk about in the very first segment of the show. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, and you, the Tolos, which means turn it on, leave it on. Shout out to the 22 Tolos. Now, we're not even a minute into the show, and we got 22 Tolos already watching the live stream.
It's called dedication.
It is. You turn it on, you leave it on from the very beginning of the show, and that's what we love you for. By the way, you can watch the show live on Facebook, on Twitter, or on YouTube. We are at the Fan Upstate on all 3. And we had a Tolo yesterday who told us that he's new to the Upstate and he created a YouTube account just so that he could watch our live show.
Man,
that's awesome. Which, by the way, if you have a Google account, like you already have a YouTube account, you don't have to create anything. So if you got a Gmail account, but you've never logged into YouTube before, go do it. Diesel, and find the Fan Upstate.
I'm the world's worst at these Gmail/YouTube accounts.
Really?
I still cannot get logged into the Fan Upstate YouTube. I'm telling you, I'm somehow ignorant to understanding how these things connect to YouTube. A Google account, YouTube's the same thing.
Oh, it's a company. You got to put in a thumbprint.
That's what I'm saying.
You got to do all kinds of weird stuff.
I'm not good at this stuff.
But Andy Dalton, Cole, we know he hasn't been a full-time starter in a number of years. He started 13 games in 2022 for the New Orleans Saints, not a full season. I don't remember the exact circumstances in that season. Those of you who are hardcore Saints fans, you might know the answer to that question. Like, did he start the season for the Saints? He got injured for a couple, missed 3 or 4 games, and then came back. I don't remember the situation there, but regardless, he played essentially a full season in New Orleans in 2022. He was 34 years old at the time. He's 36 years old now. And that year, he didn't even play so bad.
I think Jameis got benched that year.
Yeah.
4
games in, 4 games in.
Yeah, I think they had Jameis. I think they rolled Jameis out there, and that experiment didn't go well.
So in that year, 2022, and by the way, the Huddle graded New Orleans' offensive line that year as the 25th best in the NFL. So a crap offensive line. I don't know if you know this, but the Carolina Panthers also have a crap offensive line.
Yeah, newsflash.
I wanted to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples here, not gassing up Andy Dalton's stats when he had a really good offensive line, but he didn't. He had an awful offensive line. 252 of 378, 66% completion, 2,800 yards, 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, sacked 25 times in that season. For a guy that played essentially 3/4 of a season, that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Last year as a full-time starter, 34 years old, 66% completion and 18 touchdowns.
You know, he's kind of one of those quarterbacks, and like, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, Diesel, but he's kind of one of those quarterbacks that's like good enough to be a starter for some teams, but then for some teams, he's not good enough to be. I remember he played for my Cowboys for several months and wasn't bad.
He's just good enough to get somebody drafted to replace him.
Yeah.
You know, he's a starter on the bottom 10 teams in the NFL, but they're always going to go out and draft a quarterback to try to get somebody better than Andy Dalton.
However, if you asked prospects in college, kids in high school, if they wanted to have that career, they take it in a heartbeat, right?
Are you telling me you could still be 36 years old, still be chiseled the way he is,
14 seasons, man,
and have an opportunity to replace the number 1 overall pick? I mean, he spent a long time in Cincinnati and has been kind of a journeyman ever since. He's been a backup for most of those years, or some of those years. He was a starter for some of those years. Andy Dalton, it gives you unequivocally right now, week 3 going into the season, gives you a much better chance to beat the Las Vegas Raiders than Bryce Young did.
I think so.
You have virtually a 0% chance of beating the Raiders with Bryce Young. I give him maybe a 40% chance to beat the Raiders now. Like I haven't even gone to look and see what the ESPN matchup predictor is for this game, but Andy Dalton gives you a better chance to win. And that's where Dave Canales and that's where David Tepper and all their heads are at right now. We've got to have Bryce Young sitting. We've got to give him a chance to sit, to learn and figure out this system, because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to fully break Bryce Young. I mean, most people already believe that he's cooked, right? We've seen that narrative all over Twitter, all over social media for the last couple of days. Bryce Young's done. He'll never start in this league again. I think there's a good chance he starts again later on this season. Maybe by week 10 of the season, maybe by week 11 of the season. I mean, it all kind of depends. Like, right, there's a lot of moving pieces as far as to how Andy Dalton plays. Are they able to score more than one offensive touchdown with him calling the plays? I mean, we know that he's a veteran who's been in this situation many times. Second year in Carolina, first year under Dave Canales. He's that dude who's had like a dozen or more OCs and head coach combinations in his career. Andy's going to pick up this offense really, really quickly.
I think he will. What's interesting is Andy Dalton in his career, Diesel, has been in situations where he now, like, he's the old guy on the block now, right? Yeah. He's not the guy that was getting replaced by Joe Burrow when Joe Burrow got drafted. That was Andy Dalton at that time, right? However, we live in an NFL style of play, I guess we can call it. We live in a world now where the NFL, it used to be you want this young quarterback who can come in and be dynamic. And to a point, sometimes that still applies. However, I think we are in an era in the NFL, Diesel, where the older quarterback who's seen more of the game, who's the veteran, who's had time under his belt, who's able to read defenses, because we know that Peyton Manning was still able to win a Super Bowl at a very old age.
Couldn't even turn his head. He was like Batman in the first Dark Knight movie.
Right, because of what? Because of his brain. He had a great football IQ. So if we're looking at the positives, I do believe Andy Dalton will be able to read defenses. His experience that he's had, 14 seasons in the NFL, it's definitely better than Bryce. Is Andy Dalton, in my opinion, going to come out here and absolutely light it up? I don't think so because of what's around him. I think Panther fans, Diesel, will still see that the team sucks. Regardless of Andy Dalton being the quarterback, the team still sucks. But it's a much-needed upgrade, and I think fans may be surprised with how well he does.
So they scored, 10 points in week 1 in that 47-10 blowout to the Saints. They scored, 3 points last week in week 2. Just an awful performance. We know that now Andy Dalton is going to have some decent offensive weapons to throw the ball to. That was the whole point of this offseason, was to upgrade the offensive weapons for Bryce Young. I fully believe and I expect that this Andy Dalton-led Carolina Panthers team should score minimum 17 points this week. Now, I still say that only gives them about a 40% chance to win because the Carolina defense sucks and their best players are getting hurt and J.C. Horn is getting torched. God, how awful was that, by the way? We've talked all offseason. This is a show me year for J.C. Horn. And then what happens? First quarter, gets torched.
He had one good play where he forced a fumble.
He did get an interception.
Yeah, I'm sorry, interception.
Yeah, he had the interception. So, hey, way to make up for it. But you're not going to make it for long in this league being cornerback number 1 if you're trading touchdowns for interceptions. That's just not how it's going to work, right? You can't go 1-to-1 ratio on those. But, our boss here, Cole, all the time talks to us about you're never as good as your best ratings book and you're never as bad as your worst ratings book because ratings can fluctuate. They're all over the place. It's dependent on a whole lot of factors, how you get rated in the radio business. And the same is true for quarterbacks in the NFL. You're never really as great as your single best season, and you're never as bad as your single worst season. Andy Dalton's worst career passing percentage, completion percentage, was 59%. And that was his last year in Cincinnati. And obviously we're not surprised that he got traded after that. But his career, he's a 63% completion guy, which ain't bad, which, by the way, would put him right now just below Dak Prescott and just above Will Levis as 20th best in the NFL. That's not going to inspire a ton of confidence. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up Carolina Panthers' backsides. I'm just saying that you got a decent, serviceable quarterback running the system this week. He's played behind really bad offensive lines. Talking about that year, 2022 in New Orleans, had an awful offensive line, but he still only got sacked 25 times in that year. That tells me, number one, he knows how to roll out when he has to. That tells me he knows how to pick up blitzes, and he knows when to get rid of the football. 3 things that Bryce Young has been awful at. So instant upgrade for the Carolina Panthers with Andy Dalton. I realize he's older. I realize his skills may diminish a little bit. We won't know that until we have more than a game under his belt. Like, he only played 1 game last year.
It is a week-to-week league. And what I think when you talk about Andy Dalton, I believe that most people would say that they agree that he is an upgrade. However, I do believe the talking point now, the conversation now, Diesel, is what do the Panthers have to see from Andy Dalton, not only this week in Las Vegas, but going forward to show them that, talking about 2024, not 2025, but 2024 on its own, what does Andy Dalton have to show for him to win the job? Because you said something a minute ago that you think there's a possibility that Bryce Young may be back as the starter later in the year. I'll say, if you told me that Bryce Young is back, let's just call it 4 to 6 weeks from now, I would tell you that's not a good sign. I think the best case scenario, and you may disagree, Panther fans may disagree, I think the best case scenario, Diesel, Bryce Young's on the bench the rest of the season. Ooh. Andy Dalton, best case scenario, comes in, wins the job, shows that he's capable enough to turn this thing around, read the defenses, to your point, like you said a minute ago, be able to make adjustments. That's one thing that Bryce Young's not been able to do. When he gets up to the line of scrimmage, Bryce Young at times looks lost. I believe that Andy Dalton, with his experience reading defenses, you will see a much slower game, right? You know how they talk about all the time, it's slower for this guy. It's his 2nd year in the league now, or 3rd or 4th year in the league. Things do slow down, and I believe that you'll see Andy Dalton in this offense more efficient because ultimately the game is slower for him.
Well, we remember that audio clip of Tom Brady a couple of weeks back saying that we've dumbed down offenses so much for these new guys because they're not ready to play. And it feels very much like we're still in that situation with Bryce Young. Obviously, different players, different quarterbacks develop at different rates. CJ Stroud took him a couple of weeks to get going last year, looked really good by the end of the season, looks pretty decent so far this year. Bryce Young might be that guy that needs 2 full seasons to get it right. And I'm still of the camp that rookie quarterbacks need. I don't care if you are the number 1 overall pick. I don't care if you're the number 2 pick. I don't care if you're the number 3 pick. You need to sit your ass down for a year at minimum to learn how to be a quarterback, learn how to exist in the NFL, right? Like, everything's changing in your life. Imagine, going and being a freshman in college all over again, or a freshman in high school all over again. And you're expected to win and perform at the best of the best, highest level in a new city where you don't know anybody. Everything is different. Your entire life has changed. And oh, by the way, we put a couple of $1 million in your pocket. So you're trying to figure out, you're trying to navigate all this stuff as a rookie quarterback. Some of them, a few rare instances, they just have it.
They do.
Now we've tried to project that onto all of them, and that's why so many quarterbacks are failing in the first round draft picks are failing, Cole.
I want to agree with you. However, the only thing that I will push back on, I will say I agree that for the majority, the quarterback should sit. To your point, there are the rare instances where that quarterback has it. My belief is that it's a quarterback situation. Every single quarterback needs a different label. I don't want to label quarterbacks. Every quarterback that comes in the NFL, I don't want to label them one of 2 ways. I don't want to label them ready now, and I also don't want to label them all not ready for another 2 to 3 years, right? I think it 110% depends on the quarterback, what their development has been in college, because you brought up the Tom Brady audio, and he talked about being developed in college. That's something we're not talking about right now, but let's talk about that. Let's talk about, are these guys getting developed in college the way they're needing to be developed? I'm not saying they're not. However, if Tom Brady's saying it, Tom Brady has a pretty good leg to stand on, right? I think there's probably multiple factors, and I think the development in the college side of it, that might have more weight than we realize.
Well, that's right there, though. You're questioning Nick Saban's development of quarterbacks in his system. Now, I mean, it's hard to say I'm questioning Nick Saban, but also look at all the other quarterbacks that have come out of Alabama that have been not good in the NFL. I mean, if you want to label them system quarterbacks, that's great. You can go win national titles as a system quarterback all you want to, but being a system quarterback doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL.
Well, you're right. And ultimately, look, does Nick Saban, Diesel, did he care about getting players to the league? Absolutely. However, his ultimate goal is to win a national championship. And to your point, there were a lot of guys that he won national championships with that never stepped on the field in the NFL, right? So, it doesn't always translate, and that's one of the things that college and pro are two totally different games. When Tom Brady talks about development in college, you know what? They may be developed in college, but that development is not always going to translate into the league.
So the Raiders looked bad in week 1. They scored 10 points in a loss to the Chargers. They gave up 22 in that game. Against the Ravens, they scored 26, and they won by a field goal.
Yeah.
I'm not overly impressed with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Carolina Panthers very well may make them look like world beaters, right? Because the Carolina Panthers defense sucks. So I'm willing to predict right here, right now on the show, 24-20, Raiders win, but the Carolina Panthers, offensively at least, look like they have a clue what it is they're doing.
I don't hate that. You know what? I haven't made a prediction yet. I'm with you, though, in the camp of, and we're going to get to Rick in just a second, I am in the camp with you of the Raiders aren't over impressive. I've seen them. They don't look overly impressive this season. I do think the Carolina Panthers have a shot. Now, I'll tell you this. I think they'd have had a lot better of a shot, Diesel, if this were Andy Dalton's third game compared to his first game. If he'd already had 2 starts this year and this were his third game, I might even take the Panthers and say the Panthers do win because you've had time to build chemistry. You've had time to build relationships on and off the field with Dalton. Now he's being tossed in, not similar to the Baker Mayfield LA Rams role a few years ago, but still kind of tossed into the fire.
Mark L.O. Ducks points out that ESPN's football predictor says Vegas has a 62.5% chance to win the game.
Vegas 62.5?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it'd be closer to 50. But
50-50.
I thought it would.
What are the Carolina Panthers?
I know.
I'm not impressed either, but it's also the Panthers we're talking about here.
Neither one of them.
Yeah.
All right. Rick and Greer wants to chime in on the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. That's where you can call in as well. 844-FAN phone. That's 844-326-3663. Our resident Carolina Panthers expert, Rick from Greer.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Well, let me tell you what I did. I went to my mortgage broker today, and I took my mortgage for the house, and he paid me off for the house. I took a second mortgage out, and I'm taking every bit of that money, and I'm betting it on the Raiders to cover that. What is it, 4 points?
I'll have to look up and see what the spread is. We haven't looked at it yet, Rick.
4 points is what it is. So I'm betting $150K on the game.
It's bet up to 5, by the way. It's bet up to 5.
Bet up to 5 what?
5 points.
It could be 15, and I'd still make it bet.
Did you add that? Did you add that 35 cents in, Rick, that you got from your gas the other day?
No, I didn't. I wasn't worried about the 35 cents. I mean, I'm betting $150K my house on the Raiders this week. That's a lot to bet, but I'm telling you what, I'm that confident that the Raiders will take it. The Red Rocket I've seen him play, the Red Rifle, excuse me, and he can't throw worth a damn no more. And it's just the Panthers are awful. That's what it's about. And yes, I agree with you. Well, I got a phone call.
Is that your mortgage broker on the line?
That's the mortgage broker probably telling me that they're not going to give me the $5,000 for the house. But make this bet. I'm going to make this bet. So, believe you me, Panthers will lose.
Rick, we're going to let you go. We're going to let you take that phone call. We appreciate you calling in and being part of the show. He put 150 large on the Raiders to win and cover.
Man. You know, when I answer Rick's phone call and I see his name pop up, it's just like it's a giddy feeling. You know, you just never know what you're going to get. I mean, it's a full Forrest Gump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get when Rick calls into the show. He says the Panthers just aren't good. He's not wrong, but I wouldn't bet any money on it, especially that big of an amount. But all the power to you, Rick. We appreciate you calling in. High school football week 4 is just around the corner. Best games to watch tomorrow night. Our thoughts, your thoughts as well. If you have any high school football questions, we haven't done any high school football this week. We'll get to it next. High school football week 4, just around the corner from now. Tomorrow, some really good games. Region play is here for several area teams. It's going to be a big night in the upstate. We'll give you some thoughts in just a moment, but I do want to go back to the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. Robert the Rage from Clinton called during the break and wanted to, I believe, trash on the Carolina Panthers a little bit more. Is that right, Robert? Let's try this again, Robert. That's my bad. Let's start over. That's my fault. I hit the wrong button. Go ahead, buddy.
It happens in radio. Let me tell you something. The Rage here, first-time caller, long-time pest. Call me Mr. Negative if you want, but I was at the very first game in Panther Stadium. Back in 95, I went in places in the stadium you ain't supposed to go because I was privileged.
Like the women's bathroom?
No, not that. But I did steal a golf cart and ride around. Anyway, made good money off of it at first. I was into merch. I was walking home with $500,000 checks every week. And I said, this is great while it lasts. Well, 20, almost 30 years later, that carnival ride is just about over. You're not going to see a winning season because why would this particular owner want to stay in Charlotte? He's doing everything he can to make sure they suck. Now, I don't know how y'all feel about it. And I know we're supposed to pull for the region, but let me tell you something. They were never the Carolina Panthers. They were always the Charlotte Panthers. That was Charlotte's team. And let's be honest about the area. They can't hardly support their traditional NASCAR anymore. They can't hardly do that. They are not a professional level city. They got the Charlotte checkered. Yeah, they're not. The Hornets are still, so what? The second time around. They got a AAA ball team. They got a AAA hockey team equivalent. That's all right. And they got NASCAR. Banktown does not have the economy with bank jobs to support anything like that. They have this is not an industrial city.
Well, that's because the state of North Carolina, Robert the Rage, ain't home to any good football. Like none of the power teams in North Carolina are worth a damn. Tar Heels suck.
True.
The Wolfpack sucks.
They're all cupcake.
Right.
App State and East Carolina on a weird occasion are one that they fear because they'll get up, get a chip on their shoulder, and play.
We got to move the team to South Carolina. How about the Columbia Creepers? Columbia, I don't know what you want to call them.
Move them down,
there's
baby.
one professional team in Columbia, and that's the Gamecocks.
Oh.
And that's it. And that is it. Remember, we kept the Panthers out, even though it's technically we were told it cost $55 million a year in revenue if they had the games there. But I don't think they need it. Columbia, oh, heck no. That's where all the money goes and disappears. There's 3 reasons you go to Columbia.
Okay.
Alex Sanders said this. 3 reasons you go to Columbia. You go to the State House, the jailhouse, and here comes a politically incorrect, the Nut House. That was on CBS, 60 Minutes with Judge Alex Hawkins, Sanders, former president of College of Charleston.
Wow.
Now listen, I'm glad you brought up the Gamecocks. I got to say, they were almost America's team this weekend. They did get hosed. I wanted to call in Monday. They got hosed. But, hey, that's what happened when Frank McGuire got them good real fast in the all-cupcake conference. Duke, they did some nasty stuff. Look at the videos. Kicking John Roach in the ankle when he had a busted ankle. They did all kind of nasty things. And they've always been that way. They're a bunch of jerks. I agree with you. But I think, getting back to South Carolina, I think they became kind of, in a way, America's underdog team because Beamer did it without the portal. pretty much. It's almost like honest football. And I think they proved, even if they're in the lower tier, that South Carolina actually belongs in the Southeastern Conference. Yeah, they did in basketball and in baseball, sort of kind of that. But there was always a question, why did you get into football? And some people said it was the TV revenue. But I think the Gamecocks proved they need to be there. And it's just too bad, too sad. But that's what happens when you start to get good.
So Robert,
make it rough on you.
Robert the Rage, you called in and talk about the Carolina Panthers. You sounded off on them to start this thing out. Would you rather have a bad Carolina Panthers in Charlotte or have no team in Charlotte?
No team, especially after they host South Carolina on that training facility. We don't need stinking professional football. That's for snow belt states when they don't have any college football. You know, that's for Buffalo. That's for them industrial towns.
Yeah.
You know, for them people, you know, football is for Saturday and church and then NASCAR on Sunday.
And Robert,
that's
appreciate the call, but before we let you go, you said you're from Clinton. Are you a Clinton Red Devils fan? Because we did have a texter say Robert the Rage from Clinton, another Red Devil in the house.
Not really.
Okay. Thanks. Appreciate the honesty. And thanks for the call. Not really.
He was at the first game back in 1995.
I love it. I love it. Tell us how you really feel, Robert.
I wonder if he was calling them the Charlotte Panthers on purpose. The Charlotte Panthers. Panthers.
I love
Charlotte Panthers.
Robert, we appreciate the first time
call back
call,
in
man.
Anytime.
Absolutely. First time caller. Speaking of Clinton, some high school games, Diesel. I've got 8 or 9 on the list. There are more like 30-something games tomorrow night here in the upstate. However, I did hand pick a few. And, you know, there are some really good games. Region plays here. We know that the games are about to amp up tremendously. You pick where we start, and I will go through game to game of the 9 that I wrote down. Tell me where to start as I get this phone.
Let's start with Dorman U. How about that? Dorman at Riverside.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Should be a good one, right?
You picked Dorman Riverside to start. I'll tell you this. That is a huge game. Dorman's still, I'm going to use the word, Dorman's still down.
Dormant.
They're still dormant compared to what they used to be, right? It's a huge game, first region game for both teams, Diesel, Dorman, Riverside. Look, Riverside's 3-0 coming into this game. Dorman's 2-1. We know that Dorman has the athletes. We know Dorman has talent, but we also know that Matthew Rochester and Riverside, they've got D1 guys on this year's team. This is not the Riverside that Dorman used to play 15 years ago, right when Phil Smith left Dorman to go to Riverside. This is not that same Riverside team that's going to lie over and be the homecoming game. This is going to be a huge game in the region to decide playoff seeding. I mean, you talk about this 8-team region, Diesel. This one's going to go a long way because these two teams, Dorman and Riverside, both could be kind of neck and neck when the season's all said and done in terms of where they stand in the region. So,
all right,
that'll be a good one.
Let's talk about my wife's high school alma mater, Greenwood, hosting Hannah.
I did not know that. I did not know that was your wife's alma mater. Hannah, Greenwood, both teams 2-1. Greenwood, coming off of a big win over Lexington. I actually picked them to lose to Lexington last week. They got me wrong on that one. So Greenwood, Hannah should be a good one. Hannah was a very young team. And when you have an offense like Hannah runs, one thing that I've noticed over the years is Hannah gets better and better as the weeks go on. And Brian Pettit also mentioned Greenwood Hannah in the YouTube stream. Hannah's just one of those teams. They run a triple option, Diesel. They run that double wing type, right? You know, triple option offense, the more you do it, the better you get. First few games of the year, you might not look great, but guess what? As you get on and on and on, you're going to get better and better.
So the option offense, the triple option offense, the true triple option offense has basically been phased out of college football. I mean, does Navy even still run it? I mean, I know Georgia Tech and Georgia Southern were two of the last ones, but both of those were Bobby, blanking on his last name, head coach that was at both. Does how many high school programs in general still run it? Is it fairly common?
Yeah.
And then the question is, how many of those kids who come out of that system are really effective at the college level?
Well, I'll say this. Talking about those triple option offenses, they don't attract the biggest talent to high schools when talking about using the portal and kids transferring from high school to high school. Diesel, to answer your question, how many receivers stud receivers do you think want to go play at TL Hanna, right? Or a school that runs the triple option? No disrespect to those teams. However, a wide receiver in that offense, they're going to block. They're going to block, and they're going to run block, and they're going to block some more, and then they're going to run block some more. So teams around here still run it. Hanna does. You talked about it being kind of obsolete at the college level. There used to be more and more. Hanna was the first game I saw this year. Hanna hosted Burns, and they're a team that runs that triple option style. Eric Nash, who we talked to a few weeks on the program, St. Joe's does. There are programs out there that do. However, it's not as popular as you would think.
And by the way, I meant Paul Johnson. I mixed up Paul Johnson and Bobby Crimmins, basketball coach. So apologies to all you Georgia Tech fans. The Ramblin' Wreck, don't come after me.
Do we have Georgia Tech fans here?
I'm sure one or two. Let's go Woodruff at Chesney next.
Good one in 3A. Chesney Woodruff. Woodruff's 4-0. While Chesney's 2-2, Woodruff's outscored opponents this season 168-111. Chesney, first-year head coach Brett Chappell, they're still finding their footing. However, Woodruff's just lighting it up offensively. We had Brett Sloan on the Saturday Scramble last Saturday, and this offense is clicking. And that's one of the things we talked about with him was, look, we know the defense needs to get better, but Woodruff-Chesney should be a good game. However, I like Woodruff. Their offense right now, Diesel, is just on another level.
How about Chapman Christchurch?
So this one's intriguing because Jackson Rep, one of the best receivers in the area who's going to South Carolina, had a season-ending injury, announced it this week. Chapman needs this one really bad. Chapman's 1-3. Only win of the season was over St. Joe's, who I just talked about. Christchurch, they're 0-3, man. They moved up in classifications, and both teams, I say Chapman needs this. Christchurch needs it just as bad. However, not having Jackson Rep is crucial. We got time for two more, and then we'll get to Dewey.
This one really fascinates me. Woodmont at Greenville. Greenville had been building into a very good football team and program over the last couple of years. They've started off winless on the season through 3. Do they get on the board tomorrow night?
This one's a tougher game to pick. One of the ones that I really struggled with, I think they do. Alex Guest, my co-host on the Saturday Scramble, I believe picked Woodmont, so we're split there. I picked Greenville. I think they do get on the board, Diesel. You're right. They did have success under Greg Porter. Greg Porter now at Lawrence, Jabo Shaw in his first year. They just don't have the talent that they did with Greg Porter. So I like Greenville. I think this will be a good game. Woodmont's still battling a lot of injuries, like 7 starters at one time were out, but it should be a good one.
And then last one I want you to look at is Clinton at Daniel.
Oh,
Clinton Daniel.
Be a good one. Daniel's always good. We know that. Clinton's always really good as well. They have been as of late. Daniel's 2-1. Clinton's 3-1. Daniel coming off of a bye. Clinton coming off of a huge 49-27 win over Chapman. Clinton's good. Clinton can really light it up. However, I like Daniel tonight. I think Daniel wins, or tomorrow night, rather. I think Daniel takes care of Clinton.
Let's go to the phone lines and get our daily Dewey. See, I'm throwing a little bit of a conspiracy out there that maybe, just maybe, our last caller and Dewey are the same person, because I heard some similarities in their cadence. I could be wrong. Dewey, what's on your mind? Have you ever been to Clinton?
No.
What do you got against Clinton?
I've never been there. First of all, I don't. That Robert guy made me angry.
Okay.
And then y'all make me angry because y'all call me Robert. No, that's not my name. Second of all,
forgive us.
Wrong. He's wrong. Football should be on Sundays. He don't go to church. What's he talking about? NASCAR sucks. He probably watches deer hunting on TV too. As far as the Carolina Panthers, they should be ran out of Charlotte and replaced by a better team, a football team.
Thanks, Dewey.
What's wrong with him?
What's wrong with him? Yeah, I can't argue. Run him out of Charlotte.
He don't go to church. He watches deer hunting on TV. That might be a classic right there.
There's a lot of Carolina Panthers fans who are fine with that thought right now. Get rid of the team, wipe it clean. You know, the NFL's expanding. Maybe they'll add another couple of franchises in the U.S. Give it 10 years, and maybe we'll get a new franchise back in Charlotte. But I caution you, a lot of you Tolos who say things like it is Charlotte's team, not Carolina's team. If it ever came back, it would be Charlotte's team. I guarantee you they would be the Charlotte Panthers and not the Charlotte whatevers and not the Carolina whatevers. When we come back, Cole, we got some upset picks coming in, and we'll ask a question about another Palmetto City, whether or not we think it's ready for a professional franchise. That's next. Over 50 unique entries into the Upset Picks Challenge, brought to you by Ingles yesterday. And we've got no shortage of you Tolos getting us your picks already in the first 48 minutes of today's show. Mike Main wants Mississippi State +6 over Florida. Georgia Tech +10 over Louisville, says Tolo Phil. JD is taking Georgia Tech over Louisville +10.5. Maize and Brew says, give me Ball State +6.5 over Central Michigan.
I like that.
Tron, my App State Mountaineers let you down a couple of weeks ago. He's taking NC State +22 over Clemson.
Ooh.
He's a Georgia Southern grad. They're not the smartest bunch down there.
Bold,
and then Mark L.O. Ducks says BYU +7 over Kansas State. Those of you who are just tuning into the show, and it happens every single day, we get new Tolos finding Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. This is the Upset Picks Challenge. Your task over the course of this season is to go on ESPN.com, find a game that you think the betting underdog will win the game outright. Then you text us at 71307, keyword fan. Make sure fan is the first word in your text. Then give us your name, your game, and the spread. We have more Tolos playing this game this year than we have ever had.
Big,
we're blowing this
really,
thing
really
up.
Big.
You should jump in and be a part of this thing. Look, it's okay to have no points or be getting started right now, because I have no points also. I haven't gotten a single one right this year. But all I got to do is hit on like 3 or 4 over the course of the season, and I have a good chance at finishing in the top half of the Tolos earning points.
Into the playoff?
Yeah.
College football playoff as well?
Yeah, we got what we typically do is we take any games before Christmas and we bunch them together, the bowl games.
Yeah.
And then we play bowl games after Christmas.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then we play playoff games.
Yep.
So this year is
a lot more playoff games.
Right. This is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past, but we do pre-Christmas bowls, post-Christmas bowls, and then the playoffs.
I like it.
There you go. We'll have to go kind of round by round this year because we won't have lines for second and third and fourth round playoff games at that point. So jump into the challenge. We'd love for you to be a part of this thing. Give us your name, your game, and the spread. Text it in to 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Give us your name, your game, and your spread. Mark L.O. Ducks, I'll use his as an example. It says Mark L.O. Ducks, BYU +7 over Kansas State.
We've had several of those BYUs.
Yeah, that's a popular choice. That's a popular choice.
That.
I think Josh Pate took that one. I mean, he's a smart guy.
However, I want to say one thing. Mm-hmm. I do think, as one of the texts just came in a minute ago with Mississippi State over Florida, I don't know why I didn't take it. I don't know why you didn't take it. But I think Mississippi State over Florida, as bad as they are, I think that's the safest pick this week. I really do.
I think if Mississippi State upsets Florida, Billy Napier's not the head coach next week. We know the money is raised. Yep. We know they're talking to big name candidates. We know they're calling up Urban Meyer, making him say no. We know John Gruden wants to get back into college football, right? I mean, he's a cocky enough dude. I think John Gruden, his personality at least, fits really well in Gainesville, Florida.
That may be the most televised. Like, more people may be watching that game, Diesel, just to see how it ends. Yeah. I mean, imagine if it's tied with like a minute to go. Tie ball game, 28-28, and Mississippi State gets the football, goes down, kicks a game-winning field goal.
Who did you take in the Upset Picks Challenge this week?
ECU, baby. ECU over Liberty. Yes.
And you're getting 6 points if you get that one right. And you currently have, I'm going to look up on the spreadsheet that shows us our total number. You have 9 points.
9 points.
You have 9 points.
One last week.
So you get that one, Cole. You're sitting pretty. You're sitting pretty with 15 points if you get that one right.
Be what, middle of the pack?
Which could jump you up to top 15.
Be big
in this challenge. Depends on what other people around you do up there as well.
You know, you said it. It's a marathon.
It's a marathon. Even if you haven't gotten into this challenge yet, you can still make your way up the leaderboard. Amazon guy hit like 3 weeks in a row. He missed last week, and you called it. You said Amazon guy will not call another correct upset pick this season, which means he could fall all the way back to the low 20s. Even if he forgets to pick, he could fall even farther than that. Because remember, if you don't pick at all, you lose 2 points. If you get one wrong and you already have points on the board, you lose 1 point.
I like it. I'm excited. I'm an ECU. I'm the biggest Eastern Carolina fan ever this weekend. I mean, ever. Upset picks continue. We'll also have our high school coaches spotlight in the very next segment, as we do on Thursdays. We didn't last Thursday because, well, Diesel and I were bowling, and I was getting called mean names. But we'll talk to Matt
Bumpers.
Real, the head football coach of the Bowling Springs Bulldogs. A huge game tomorrow night as the Bulldogs host the Gaffney Indians. High school coaches spotlight next. Diesel, you asked the question on the rundown for us to get to at some point today about Columbia seeking a WNBA franchise.
Yeah.
And I have some thoughts on this, and I actually talked to somebody today about this and tried to get a little inside info. Wasn't really successful, but I at least tried.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. The WNBA had 14 franchises. They are expanding to Portland, Oregon. So now there's 15. That's an odd number of teams in a league, right? I mean, I guess you could have as many as you want. For some reason, most major American men's sports have 32-team leagues. I mean, I guess you could get them to 16 if you want to keep it like nice round numbers, if you want to maybe try to adjust the playoffs, whatever. But the WNBA is exploding in popularity right now with Caitlin Clark and her success. Ratings were up 133% last year. I think, Cole, it's time for the state of South Carolina to get a highest level pro franchise. And if it ain't going to be the NHL, which I have pushed hard for years on this show and on this station, to have an NHL team in Greenville, South Carolina, the largest market in the largest city, largest market and largest state that does not have a pro team. Why not plant the WNBA flag right there in the city of Columbia, where women's basketball has a huge, huge audience?
So I'm with you. I did, and by the way, we'll have our high school coaches spotlight in 3 minutes from now. Matt Reel of Bowling Springs, 3 minutes from now, right here on Wire to Wire. I did reach out, so I'm for it, right? Like, I'm all for it. If they're gonna get 16 teams, I don't know how Columbia, the city, compares to other cities that host or that have WNBA teams. However, I reached out to a good friend of the show, good friend of mine, Diana Koval, who is the women's basketball SID, assistant AD at South Carolina. She's in communications and public relations. She helps us with all the Dawn Staley interviews. And anytime Dawn Staley's on an interview anywhere, it's because of Diana. She's fantastic. She's awesome. I saw her Saturday at the Carolina game. I asked her about it this morning. She said she don't know of any talks. However, it would have to 110% start at the city level. And she said that, it would make sense in terms of what Dawn Staley's built. It would make sense to try to correlate it from the city standpoint. However, I don't know if the city of Columbia has any desire, 0%, 50%, 100%, to have a WNBA franchise, but she did say it is 100% on the city. And, with them not, she also said with Columbia not having an NBA team, it'd make it really, really difficult to build a relationship that would be able to put something together that quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe it happens. I'd love for it to, but I don't know. I don't think
if there was a regional, I'm just saying I want it, right? I'm not saying that I've heard anything inside that says that it's going to happen. Regionally, the likelihood, if it was going to happen anywhere, it feels more likely that it would come to Raleigh, because Raleigh is already a major league city with the Hurricanes. Raleigh already has NC State women's basketball that's elite. There's UNC just down the road. There's a lot of really good women's basketball being played in the state of North Carolina. Duke is always really, really good. So you've got 3 top 25 programs right there in the triangle around Raleigh. You've got Columbia just down the road. All those college programs. I don't know, that's not really how it works with the WNBA draft and Major League Sports drafting, but I feel like you could siphon the best of the best players and make it your MO as a franchise to try to pull in as many Blue Devils, Wolfpack, Tar Heels, and Gamecocks to your team in the city of Raleigh. And I think that would work really, really well. But damn it, I want it in South Carolina. I'm tired of North Carolina getting all this crap and these idiots up in Charlotte not really appreciating what they've got.
Well, I'd be all for it in Columbia. And to Diana's point, with them not having an NBA team, I'm very curious now that she said that, what the relationship what the relationship is with cities that already have a team, if that relationship makes it a lot easier to get a WNBA team like Portland. But it is a very interesting conversation.
Maybe it's easier to tie in the funding, right? If you've already got, if you're Charlotte, you've already got the Hornets, it's easier to tie in the funding for, the Honeybees.
Sure. It may very well be.
If you were to get that.
All right, every Thursday on the Fan Upstate, we have a high school coaches spotlight right here on Wire to Wire. We have Matt Rill, Boiling Springs, joining us on today's show for this week's high school coaches spotlight. Coach, non-region play, just like that, a blink of an eye, it is over. You guys had a fantastic non-region slate. Do you and your coaching staff look at non-region versus the region almost as two different seasons?
In some aspects, I think you have to. The whole point of the non-region is to get you ready for what you're going to see during region play, and obviously with the change of classification for some of those guys, and us only having 3 non-region games this year, it's a little bit faster than normal. But that's why you do everything you do from January until August. So it's kind of the first stage is done. And now you're going into probably the most important part is that region play before you get to the playoffs.
Coach Rill, can you talk about the institutional and the fan support and how that's changed over the course of your now 3 seasons there at Boiling Springs? 2021, kind of a tough year, but you had to build back. 2022, a little bit better. And now 2024, you're off to the races at 3-0. How has it been getting the support from your school, from your fans?
Yeah, I mean, it's been huge. I think the biggest thing was there was already a good fan base that's been established. A lot of people that are just lifetime supporters want the best for, whoever's here running the show. And I felt that as soon as I got here. But, there hadn't been a lot of wins, for a couple years before we got here. And that takes its toll, man, on the school, on, just the camaraderie between teams in the school and the expectations of, like what we have right now, those other teams talking about, us winning on Fridays and how they expect us to win and can't wait to celebrate, sing the alma mater and all that kind of stuff. So, for me, man, just having our kids to be able to have that excitement, have that support, not just from our inner circle, but now they're starting to get it from other teams, the teachers in the school building, our support staff here, our admin here. It's awesome for me because our kids, some of them hadn't been a part of that, and coming from a place where we won quite a bit and saw that and saw how on Friday nights, man, it was nothing but just chief gear there. And now seeing that same thing on Friday nights now, guys calling from the NFL, wishing our guys luck, guys, parents reaching out, hey, my son played back in 2016, 17, hadn't really been there. I'm coming Friday night. It's nice to have expectations again. It's nice to be important. And I love the fact that our kids are starting to be able to enjoy this and really see what that's supposed to feel like and what it is and how, special it really is when you're in that situation.
Coach Matt Rill, head coach of Boiling Springs, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. Coach, we know you have a huge one tomorrow. We'll get into that. But before I get into the game tomorrow night with you guys in Gaffney, we talked about the non-region slate being a different season almost. From a coaching standpoint, do you view the way you schedule those non-region games any differently going forward as to in years past, those non-region games didn't have any impact on the playoffs, and now they do? There's an RPI system with max preps. Are you as a coach now viewing the scheduling of the non-region any different?
I think it's something you definitely have to think about depending on how your region, how it matches up. There's some regions that don't have, the quality of opponents that we have from top to bottom. And, I think if that was the situation, we might have looked at things a little bit differently than what we did. But, really for me, we're not really in that situation because we play such really good teams, such high-ranked teams, and we're playing the second team in the state tomorrow night. So, right out of the gate, you're getting that challenge. To me, a lot of it is I want to work with good people. I want to play against people that are going to challenge us with, things we're going to see during our region play, the types of teams we play, so that you can kind of be really consistent with how you're preparing, knowing that what you're doing in week 0 is going to translate, for us like it does right now, weeks 2, 3, 4, all the way through week 10, with just the top people we're playing, the offense and defenses we're seeing. Obviously, everybody's really multiple, but we're not preparing for wing T teams. We're not preparing for single wing, that type of stuff. Pretty much everything we're going to see kind of matches up across the board. So, that's the kind of things I look at. Are we going to play teams that are tough? Are we going to play teams that are disciplined? Are we going to, be put in compromising situations early on in the year and see how our kids, respond to that adversity? And I think, too, how do we treat our kids in practice every week? How do we treat our kids in the weight room every week? How our schedule matches up to maximize their potential and for our kids to see every week's a new week, man. There is no carryover from the week before. Nobody cares if you won the last week, man. The next group is chomping at the bit, to get to you. So those are the kind of ways I look at it. And, I think it's worked out well for us. We've been we've done a great job of who we played so far. And obviously it's just going to be a little bit tougher every week from now on.
Coach Matt Reel, head football coach for the Boiling Springs Bulldogs, joining us here on the Fan Upstate. So far through 3 games, Coach, it's been score a lot and shut the other guys down. What do you want the identity of a Matt Reel-led team to be, and how close do you feel like you are to being that through 3 games?
Well, I think when I first got here, I told the kids there were certain things we're going to build our program on. And I think, the first year was hard, man, because it was hard getting those kids to understand exactly what that looked like. And then, too, just putting that winning mindset in them. Last year, they got a taste of it and, had put a full year in of the weight room, which is one of the things we talk about a lot here. And now going into year 3, if you look at our kids, they're not the same kids anymore. But 2, we're a more disciplined team. I think we play extremely physical. We've been very disciplined, and we've done a great job these 3 games of executing offensively at a very high clip, not turning the football over, not giving guys things. And I really feel like defensively we do a great job, of being disciplined with what we do, making guys really have to be, really good at what they're doing to be able to accumulate the ball down the field. And I think, we've talked about not giving up the big plays, make a high school football team have 10, 11, 12 play drives to go and score. And honestly, there's not a ton that can do that. If you watch the highlights on Friday night, most of the scores you see are a deep pass, a reverse, a bust, tackle, and a guy goes for 75 yards. I mean, those are the type of plays that are putting points on the board, and that's the things that obviously we're trying to create offensively. But, just be consistent, man. Be tough. Be great teammates. Love each other. Hold each other to a standard. Have expectations. And we talk all the time about, living to our standard. Our standard doesn't change based off who we're playing. It's solely based off of who we are, how we do things, and what we hold ourselves to. And, going into tomorrow night, it's going to be the same thing. It's a great football team we're playing, ton of tradition. Dan does a phenomenal job, and a lot of those guys personally. But it's about us, man. It's not about them. It's about us playing to our standard, taking care of us. And I really feel like if we do that, we got a great chance to win a football game tomorrow night.
Coach, you referenced it. In radio, we call that a segue. I call that a great segue, referencing tomorrow night's game, Gaffney at Boiling Springs. It's a big one, probably one of the bigger ones in the upstate, as both teams looking for their first win in region play. This game, as we all know, will go a long ways in deciding where both teams land in the region. And a lot of people, including myself, think it could be for the region when it's all said and done. We know it's the first game, but, Coach, when you look at this matchup, what do you like? But also on the flip side of the coin, what concerns you?
I just love our kids, man. I love the way we compete. I love the way we do things. I love the way we've met all of our challenges. I think we've done a good job. Again, like I said before, man, we got to play to our standard. I think with them, they can be explosive offensively. The quarterback does it well. Got some receivers that obviously can give you some major issues. They're huge up front. And I think the biggest thing is, they know how to win. They expect to win. They've established they know how to win big ball games. And, I think for us, it's a great opportunity to get that signature win that you need that can really push you to special places in a program whenever you get to it. Really for me, watching them, we got to handle their pressure. They're bringing a ton of pressure on defense. Guys fly around. They have tremendous team speed on that side of the ball. And they're coached well, man. They're in the right place. They play hard. They do all the things you would expect a Gaffney football team to do. And they don't win for no reason, man. They got good players. They got good scheme. But we got the same. And I tell you, man, I really love our guys. I love just, how our program is built right now. I love our coaches. I trust our guys. I'm very relaxed right now. It's kind of eerie. It's kind of weird. But, I just trust the process of what we've been doing. I trust our kids. I trust our plan. We just got to take care of us, live up to our standard. Don't give them free things, make them earn everything. No turnovers. Special teams, I think, could be, a big thing when we look at, the end of the game tomorrow night. I think there could be some big plays to be made, and also to not let it happen to you. They do a great job trying to block punts, going after it. Saw that in the man film. So, just got to do all the little things right. In these big games, you can't give good football teams extra opportunities, and we got to make sure we don't do that tomorrow night.
Coach, your quarterback, Lincoln Husky, was our player of the week last week or the week before. I always like to give coaches an opportunity to talk about the lunch pail guys on the roster. A glue guy that doesn't always get the stats, doesn't always get the headlines in the local papers. But can you give me a guy or two on your roster that really kind of embody that, the glue guys that don't get the stats but hold the team together, that are so important to what it is you're doing?
I think we got a lot of those guys. I think we got some guys that are putting up some really big stats, early in the year, and obviously that's what everybody, their eyes flock to, and they should. We got some really good football players, but a guy like Jameer Wright can literally play every spot on defense except probably in the secondary for us. Lines up at nose, lines up at defensive end, lines up defensive tackle, lines up at linebacker. Plays special teams for us, comes in and plays tight end when we need him. Just a phenomenal football player, very high IQ, endless motor. Does anything we ask him to do with a smile on his face, and really, he's everywhere, man. And kids like him. We got another kid named Gavin Calhoun, plays linebacker for us, plays special teams for us. We moved him around in the backfield a little bit against Chapman, scored a couple times against them. Just a hard-nosed, tough, downhill, fiery type kid. Bleeds off on the guys around him. When you look at film, that's a dang football player right there. And then offensively, I've got a kid named Grayson Crow who, we're a lot of formations, a lot of motions, a lot of things to get guys looking different ways so we can do what we want to do. And he's kind of the guy that fits all that together. He knows everything. He's a high IQ guy. We can move him around in different positions. We can motion him everywhere. Just kind of makes everything fit, the way that it needs to, offensively, so we can get to what we need to get into. But Cole, I can sit here and go on for hours, man. I know you ain't got that time, but when you have a good football team and you get to the point where we're at year 3 and you're changing things, I think it's easy just to see a lot of positives, and you just love them, man, because they're doing everything you ask them to do, and they do it with their smile on their face. And as a coach, you can't ask for much more than that.
Coach, great stuff. We appreciate your time on our high school coaches spotlight this week. Best of luck tomorrow night against the Gaffney Indians, and we'll talk to you again soon, Coach.
Appreciate it, brother. Go Dogs.
Absolutely. That's Coach Matt Rill of Bowling Springs. If Diesel, that doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what will. You ready to run through a wall yet?
I am. I remember covering a game at Boiling Springs years ago for another radio station, and man, you could tell they were kind of a sleeping giant at the time. And it's good to see a program like that coming back when you got a fan base who expects it, who went through a couple of years of bad times. Those are the beautiful type seasons that make you appreciate what it is you have and keep you so invested in the team. When we come back, Cole, I want to give all of our Tolos a chance to play the what if game. What if with your favorite pro team, NFL, college, baseball, Major League Baseball, whatever it is, if your team could just get this right, they'd be good. What is this for you? Text in 71307. Let's prime the pump. Start your text with keyword fan or get on the phone lines. 844-FAN-PHONE. We'll get to that next on the Fan Upstate. You got until 7 o'clock, Tolos, to get us your upset picks for the day. 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Pick a betting underdog to get the outright win, and you could score some points in the upset picks challenge. Brought to you by Ingles. Text us your name, your game, and the spread. JB Brown says, give me East Carolina +6 over Liberty.
Let's go.
Rolling with you.
I like it.
Ben in Simpsonville wants Kansas +2.5 over West Virginia. Tiger Pal Rachel says she wants Oklahoma +7 over Tennessee.
I looked
as
at
does
that
Brandon
one.
in Spartanburg.
I looked at that one, Tiger Pal, as well as Brandon. However, man, I'm high on Tennessee right now. I'm high on them.
Me too. I like Tennessee big.
I did too. This to me, not to get on a tangent on Brandon Venables, this is a prove it game.
Yeah.
Like, this is a game where if you want us to look at you as one of the top powers in the SEC, you lose, that's fine, but you better keep it close.
He's had what, 3 seasons? Is this his 3rd or his 4th season at Oklahoma? He's
Third, right?
3 seasons in Oklahoma. That's they came from the Big 12 conference. Didn't play a lot of defense. Now you're playing against. You were brought in because you were the defensive guy. Now you're playing against an elite offense and an elite quarterback in Nico. Can't even bother to pronounce his last name.
NIL Nico is what I call
it. NIL Nico. Nico IL.
Yeah. Right.
So this is the opportunity for Brent Venables to prove that he can shut down an offense that's been scoring a ton already.
Be tough, man.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I asked you the question going into the break to fill in the blank for me. Tolos, 71307. Start your text with keyword fan or call us on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone, 844-326-3663. If your team could just get blank right, they'd be good. And I want you, you can call in and say Dave Tepper if you want to, but that's kind of low-hanging fruit, right?
The surface level.
That's surface level. I want you to go a little bit deeper on this conversation and give me something real. Like, if they could fix this, they would be pretty good.
It's surface level, but it's true, right?
Well, yeah, it's surface level, but it's kind of like the umbrella cause for everything that's gone wrong at Carolina.
Oh, boy, this is a loaded. You like loaded baked potatoes, Diesel?
Yeah.
Well, this is a loaded freaking question.
I like my baked potatoes twice baked.
Yeah,
way better
I'm a fan of that.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that.
Way better. So I'll start with the Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
How about that? Carolina Panthers are my team. Even though I wish I could do everything I could to disown them. I'm a North Carolina boy. I was 11 when the Carolina Panthers announced that they were getting in a franchise. I used to memorize how to draw the Carolina Panthers logo. I used to draw it everywhere.
That's hard.
For you, it's easy. It's a star, right? Just wop, 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 done.
6 lines,
star. Right? But, 6 lines for what? 6 more than any playoff. How many playoff wins Dak Prescott has had?
3.
Oh, he's had 3 playoff wins. How about that?
Next segment, please.
How about that?
Next segment.
But the Carolina Panthers, in my mind, Cole, and again, I'm not going surface level with David Tepper. That's low. That's easy to say. You can't say that because they can't get rid of David Tepper, right? I say if the Carolina Panthers could get their cash situation fixed, they'd be pretty good, right? If they could get their salary situation figured out, they could start building in some capital and actually go hire and pay some guys, like really good guys. No disrespect to Dante Johnson, but like one guy is not going to come in and fix this franchise. One guy is not going to come in and fix this team.
Yeah.
So they've got to get their cap situation right. And if they can do that, I think the Carolina Panthers would be a heck of a lot better. They're going to build up a lot of draft capital, and they've got some coming. So you got good guys coming in out of college. If you could have enough money to pay good guys to come in off free agency, I think you'd be in a lot better shape.
I don't hate that. My only concern is the low-hanging fruit. We go back to the low-hanging fruit here, because if they were to clear up some space on the salary cap, what is D.A. Tepper going to do with it? Do we trust David Tepper? And look, I want to see the Panthers win too. There's a local team. You have to do a pregame show. You have to talk about the Panthers. We talk about the Panthers and cover them here on the Fan Upstate. I want them to be successful, but even if they do clear some salary cap, do we trust David Tepper, do the right thing?
Well,
that's the hard part about it.
It's not David Tepper, right? It's Dan Morgan, and his role was to come in and fix it, right? I mean, in my mind, they may not work out, right? But they've at least tried to change pieces, to shuffle the deck chairs a little bit. They brought in a new coach.
Yeah.
They brought in a new GM.
And I like Dan Morgan.
And I like Dan Morgan too, right? And I want him to be successful. So Fitterer and Rule and all those guys before them, they made some horrible decisions when it came to overpaying guys that they shouldn't be overpaying, and then taking on too much debt, and then not offloading it onto other teams when they've traded some of their best players out. So I feel like Dan Morgan now knows what the problem is.
Okay.
He's just got to fix that problem.
So I will tell you from my fandom here, okay? This one's going to be a tough conversation to have. But your question, the segment question is, if your team could just get this right, they'd be good. Well, I will tell you, Diesel, if the Cowboys could figure out what this is, they would have won a Super Bowl by now. It's been 28 years since the Dallas Cowboys have last won a Super Bowl. My team's the Cowboys. If you didn't know, on Monday, you weren't here, but I had a text line full of how about them Cowgirls. I mean, they lose, and everybody comes out of the woodworks, right? You love them or you hate them. The reality is, with my team, and again, I'm sure in 13 seconds I'll see Dale's name pop up on the phone lines. But the reality is, Diesel, as good as the Cowboys have been for the last 28 years, as good as teams as they had, if they could answer this question, if one person, the owner, Stephen Jones, Mike McCarthy, a fan, somebody in the Walmart parking lot across the street from AT&T Stadium, if somebody could answer this question, maybe they'd be back. The only thing you can say is, because a lot of people say it's the owner, a lot of people say it's the coach, a lot of people say it's the quarterback, right? Everybody has a reason the Cowboys haven't been good. I will say, regardless of all the factors that go into it, if you're making me pick up this, I'm going to say it's been the lack of preparation and execution in the postseason. What does that go back to? You may argue that goes back to coaching. You may argue that goes back to the stars who are getting paid the most money showing up when they need to show up. I say there are multiple factors involved, Diesel. However, if I have to find a this, and there's right on cue, if I have to find a this for the Dallas Cowboys, I think it's preparation and execution in the postseason.
See, I'm glad you didn't take the low-hanging fruit like our texter, Tolo JWM, who says if the Cowboys could get rid of Dak and Mike McCarthy, they might be decent.
Oh, God. They went 4 games.
Texter, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Mike McCarthy has the highest regular season winning percentage as the Dallas Cowboys head coach. I'm scrolling back. Ever. Barry Switzer had a 625 regular season winning percentage. Mike McCarthy has a 627 regular season winning percentage. I understand in the playoffs, things are very, very different. Mike McCarthy is not your problem.
I agree with you.
That Mike McCarthy is a scapegoat to your problem.
It's easy, right?
It's
an easy answer.
Right.
You say, this is the problem, that's the problem.
I expected our Tolos to be a little more nuanced than that, truthfully.
I'll tell you this. I don't know, but I will bet you, Diesel, a hamburger from whatever establishment you like, that Dale will say the problem is number 4. Dale, tell me I'm wrong.
Did you call me or something? My ears were burning. I just felt like I needed to chime in.
Yes, we called you. Correct.
I just got that itch, man. So look, okay, I could go McCarthy as well, but you know and I know that the problem is the quarterback. For some reason, we have lacked a clutchness at the quarterback position for quite some. Say this:
when Dak had first come into the league and he was running the ball, we were very efficient because we didn't have a line that could hold up very long. He has gone away from that, and I don't know if it's because of injury or he just thinks that his line is that superior or something of that sort. But when we were efficient, he was throwing the ball 20, 25 times a game, no more than 30, and we were rolling. Now, there's been footage that's come out on him and all this other stuff, but for some reason, in the playoffs, the sphincter goes, and it's over.
I'm with you.
When he was running the ball, we were deadly because you had to keep a linebacker out to keep an eye on him.
Yeah. So Dale, I want to get your thoughts on this because this is something I've thought about Jerry Jones for a long time. There may be a smart, 15-letter vocabulary word for this, but a slavish devotion to loyalty to players on his team, especially quarterbacks. So yes. We remember how loyal he was to Tony Romo and how loyal he's been to Dak Prescott, probably overly so, to the point where if I'm Jerry Jones, I want to draft a solid quarterback behind Dak Prescott to push Dak Prescott to make him better than he currently is. Are you with me on that point?
I'm wholeheartedly with you on that. The problem is now we spent so much money in this quarterback that we can't tie up a draft pick on quarterbacks because it's win now. We're all in, if you can see the air quotes. And this year, we could have done something about that. Again, why did Jerry Jones not reach out, help Dak, and get him Derrick Henry? Derrick Henry wanted to be a Cowboy. He is just as flabbergasted as I am as the fact that he never got a phone call, not a sniff of a ring. And here I am thinking, you put Derrick Henry back there, you hand the ball off to him 20, 25 times a game. Dak's throwing the ball 20, 25 times a game. Guess what? That's a recipe. Play action is going to murder teams.
Dale, thanks for the call, man. You know what? I don't disagree with a lot of things he said. I don't disagree with you. I think, he has been too loyal, and that's hurt him. He was way too loyal with Jason Garrett and Tony Romo. Now, Tony Romo is a good quarterback, but he was way too loyal with JG. There's no doubt.
I'm going to go nuts and bolts on one more of my teams. You all know that I'm an App State Mountaineer alum. I'm going to say this year for this year's team, if App State could get the long chunk play, the big bomb play under control on defense, they'd be pretty good because they shut down. They basically stopped East Tennessee State in the first week of the season. They stopped East Carolina outside of one big play. I mean, they had one offensive touchdown the entire game, and it was on a huge chunk play, the explosive play by the just basically a complete cluster, by the secondary on defense. And obviously, we saw that happen against Clemson as well. Cade Klubnik absolutely torched App State's secondary on big, long throws. If you could get those under control, limit those catches to 10, 15, 20-yard gains instead of letting them explode for 60-yard touchdowns, this App State defense could be pretty good this year. So I'm going to go small scale for my team.
I like it. And you know what, though? The season's still young. No SoCon play yet, right?
JD asked the question, did Dale have a Hezbollah pager? He was hearing that in the background behind Dale's call the whole time.
Said App State hasn't even gotten to SoCon play. That's way off. They haven't even gotten into conference play, right?
Sunbelt play.
SoCon. What am I thinking? Texter says Dak is a serviceable quarterback. If Minnesota can win with Brad Johnson and Tampa can win with Trent Dilfer, Dallas should be able to win with Dak.
Hey, Carolina Panthers fans would trade you Andy Dalton back if you want to give us Dak Prescott.
Texter continues, Jerry Jones, let me click on the text, is now and always has been the issue in Dallas. Texter, the last thing I'll say about that for the Cowboys standpoint on the Jerry Jones, what is the problem, is the question Diesel asked. Jerry, in my opinion, is a part of the problem, right? However, I think, as I said earlier, there have been multiple problems when you are trying to do something you haven't done in 28 years in the playoffs, you can't have multiple factors. You can't have unprepared defense. You can't have bad quarterback play. I don't think the owner had anything to do with the playoff loss last year in Green Bay. But the problem is, Texter, they have had way too many bad, or let me phrase it this way. They've had way too many bad things happen. All of a sudden, it seems like every single year when they do get to the playoffs, when they reach that point, the tables turn. They have too many bad things happen at the wrong time. Texter says, for Gamecock football and baseball, now about being consistent at something other than inconsistent. Texter says, Coastal Carolina plus 20 against Carolina Panthers. That's bad. That's bad, Texter, but funny.
Yeah, it feels like Carolina Panthers are going to be the butt of that joke this year.
Yeah,
whoever the best, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas, whoever, the joke will be, how bad do we think that team would beat the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, I guess we can't say they're bad jokes anymore because they kind of deserve them. But it's a good question.
The Panthers are the joke.
They are the joke. And to put a bow on my team, I believe they're close. I believe they've been close. And I know Dale's always a frustrated Dallas Cowboy fan, as am I. But I don't think Jerry Jones is the entire problem in Dallas. But it's a great conversation, and I believe we could probably spend the whole show on it. I mean, what do Mad fans want to do? Mad fans want to tell you how mad they are, right? Patriots, Jets tonight. Aaron Rodgers, Jets, contender in the AFC. After what we've seen, what say you? Next. little Thursday night football in MetLife Stadium, not the snowy Patriots-Jets games in MetLife that we're used to. However, I still think it'll be a really good game. I know the Patriots have kind of surprised Diesel to start the season. Jets are favored. Right now, it's a 6-point favorite in favor of Aaron Rodgers. However, New England, just so you know, is 2-0 against the spread this season. AFC East rivals, always a close game for the majority unless Tom Brady's the quarterback. Under looks like a good bet tonight. Could be low scoring. But Aaron Rodgers, he's 1-1, had a tough loss to start the season against San Francisco. They did bounce back and beat Tennessee. When you look at tonight's game and Aaron Rodgers as a whole, have I changed your mind any that Aaron Rodgers can be a contender in the AFC?
I don't like Aaron Rodgers. I vehemently dislike Aaron Rodgers. I've never debated that he's a solid quarterback,
right,
because he very much is. And now we're waiting to see if and when that fall off of skills is going to happen. Is he already 40?
I think he 40, is. Yeah. Close to it.
So, I mean, he looked all right on the road at Tennessee.
40.
He looked all right on the road at San Francisco. And you got Jacoby Brissett on the other side. I feel like the Jets are going to win this football game. I feel like they're going to win it fairly easily.
I think so, too. The problem is New England, even with a win last week, only passed. I'm not looking at the exact stats, but they only had like 130 yards passing from Jacoby Brissett. It wasn't a big day. I think tonight New England will really struggle against Aaron Rodgers, and I think their secondary will struggle. I do think, though, I'm with you. I think the Jets win the game tonight. However, I'll tell you this. If you're one to lay a little scratch every now and then, not in South Carolina, of course, because it's illegal and you shouldn't do that, but New York Jets -6, I think the Patriots could cover. I think it could be a 4-point game tonight.
Really?
I do. I think the Patriots –
You think for that? I'm going Jets to cover.
Well, I'll tell you this: Aaron Rodgers, and if you tell me they need to cover tonight, I'll tell you Breece Hall's got to have another big night. Breece Hall is an exceptional running back. He had a really good night, 100 yards, 100+ yards, if I'm not mistaken, without looking last week in the win over Tennessee. So if you were to tell me that the Jets cover, which it wouldn't surprise me. I'll tell you, I do think that line might be a tic-tac too low. I thought it might be around 7. Diesel, if you tell me they cover, I'd say Breece Hall is going to have a good night. I do like Aaron Rodgers to, I don't want to say eat the secondary alive for New England because I don't want to disrespect them. However, I do think when you look at matchups, Aaron Rodgers has a big advantage with him and his receivers, especially Breece Hall, going against this Patriots defense. Now, they're not the most talented team. However, what we have seen through 2 weeks is with Gerard Mayo, they're gonna outwork you. They're gonna out-hustle you. They're a scrappy team. You know, Bill Belichick kind of prided himself on that. I don't think they've lost that under Gerard Mayo, but I think it'll be a good game. I have not made a decision. I think I might play this game tonight, New York -6, but I do like them to win. I just don't know if they cover. I'm actually looking forward to this game tonight. I'll have it as well as App State on tonight.
Madcraft on the stream says Patriots defense ain't no joke. They shut down Joe Burrow, but that was also Joe Burrow coming off of an injury, his first game back. Yep. So
should be a good game, man.
Yeah, it should be an all right game. I do think the Jets win and cover them.
Oh, crap. I can't do that. That's on Prime. I can't have dual screens tonight.
Oh, boo. You're going to have to get out your laptop.
Yeah.
You have to do it the old-fashioned way,
ESPN,
man.
right?
ESPN single. ESPN 1. The mothership.
The mother.
When we come back, we've talked a lot over the past week about head coaches and who ought to be fired, who will be fired, when they think they should be fired, and why. So we'll talk hot seat next. Welfare checks on some of the game's biggest coaches on the other side on the Fan Upstate. Halfway through show number 124 of Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Welcome into the show. If you're just joining us, Tolo, which means turn it on, leave it on. Now that you're here, you're locked in all the way until 6:53 when we hit the eject button on the Fan Upstate. Welcome into the show. Getting your upset picks in on the text line 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Roger Carper's taking Michigan over USC plus 5.5. Wesley Roberts wants Ohio plus 20 over Kentucky. Tolo JWM says NC State over Clemson. That one's worth 20.5. Brandon from Moore says Georgia Tech over Syracuse and the 10.5 points. JD in Simpsonville took Georgia Tech over Louisville plus 10.5. Brandon from Spartanburg took Oklahoma over Tennessee.
I think we have a Brandon in every town in the upstate.
Yeah, you got to be specific.
Spartanburg, Simpsonville, Brandon in Five Forks.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's
go. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Every Thursday at this time, we do our welfare checks. We are gauging coaches on the hot seat. Are they good? Can they rest on the couch? Or are they close to getting fired?
Ooh,
big questions.
No coaches this year are anywhere close, especially in Gainesville, right?
No, the state of Florida, everything's well down there.
Mighty
everything's
fine.
Stable. Everything's good. So let's start right there in Florida. Tallahassee, to be exact. Mike Norvell, head coach of the Florida State Seminoles. But for how long, Cole?
You know, Mike Norvell, looking at what he's done this year, not just as a sample size of this year, but also having to factor in, having to consider what Mike Norvell has done in previous years. You and I talked about this just a few days ago right here on Wire to Wire. And has Mike Norvell been horrible this year? Yes, he's been horrible. I don't know what you put as his biggest flaw in 2024. I say him not finding another quarterback somewhere in Tallahassee is his biggest flaw. However,
open tryouts on campus, would you?
Anybody, you, me, Diesel, anybody, Tolos, anybody, Melissa, anybody can play quarterback better than DJ. However, I cannot forget what he did a year ago, and I understand right now, especially in the state of Florida with passionate fan bases, it's a what have you done for me lately world, right? That's the society we live in. However, I can't forget about last year. I think Mike Norvell, in my opinion, is about a 6.5 out of 10 in terms of the hot scale. Not the hot seat, but the hot scale. It's pretty hot. 6.5 is pretty hot, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. The problem with Mike Norvell is that he can't recruit elite talent at a high school and develop them. So the situation that Mike Norvell finds himself in next year will be the exact same situation that Mike Norvell is in this year.
Not good.
And was in last year, which means you got to go to the portal. You got to throw a lot of money at somebody, and you got to hope like hell that it works out. It worked out for you in 2023. You were good. You were great. And then your QB got hurt.
Yeah.
This year, you tried to go to that well again. For whatever reason, you put your trust in DJ Uiagalelei, and he has screwed you in a big, big way. So now the microscope is squarely on Mike Norvell and his ability to go out there and find a good quarterback.
It's a tough situation. It's almost like in basketball, Diesel, living and dying by the three, right? If it's working, you're the best team ever. You're the hottest team in the league.
You're a genius.
You're the freaking man. Nothing can touch you. You just can't be stopped. However, with those teams that shoot the three ball, when it gets cold, buddy, things go south quick. And I think that's the same thing with the transfer portal. I think Mike Norvell has shown that. That's why I do go back to the conversation of having a good mix. I think you have to have a good mix of portal guys and, to your point a minute ago, good recruits, which he really hasn't done a good job on.
So we got a text here. Shocker, texter didn't put their name on it. Unless Strange is the moniker that you want to go by. But Texter says regarding Florida State, it's almost like using the transfer portal got him into trouble. Strange. What do you mean by that, Texter? What do you mean? Why don't you make your point a little more plain, would you? I know
what they mean.
I know exactly what he means. I just want he or she. I'm not here to judge or discriminate. Or they, them. I don't know what you go by. But what are you trying to say? Are you trying to put out an "I told you so"? Are you one of those "I told you solos"?
That's a good one. I like that.
I told you so tolos. I told you solos. Who want to tell us that because one program has been burnt to ashes by overusing the transfer portal, that Dabo Swinney is some kind of genius because he doesn't use the transfer portal. Jordan from GE. Thank you, Jordan from GE, for texting in. He's trying to use one program that used the transfer portal to tremendous effect last year and saying that because it hasn't worked for them this year, that makes Dabo Swinney a genius. Good God, don't pull a muscle reaching so far, Jordan from GE.
You don't know exactly that's what he's saying, but you can imply.
No, I know that because he says, yes, I told you so.
Well, I'll say this. One program, I'll play devil's advocate a little bit. One program, you're right. It's just one. However, one program that should have been in the national championship conversation last year if they didn't get stuff in the playoff. One program is a good example of how other programs that aren't at your elite level model their program. So there are a lot of programs who looked at Florida State last year, Diesel, and said, you know what? The way they're doing it works. That's the way I'm going to do it. Well, now all of a sudden, a year later, they look like the idiot because they modeled Florida State, and Florida State's 0-3, right? I just really think it goes back to what I said, man. There's got to be a mix. I'm not saying Dabo's a genius. I'm not saying he's an idiot. I think there has to be a mix. And you and I have talked about it with Clemson. We're not asking Dabo to go use the portal the way that Mike Norvell does, but we're just asking him to be competitive in the portal, right?
It can screw you if you overuse the portal. We're not suggesting, and nor have we ever suggested, that Dabo Swinney should go all in on the portal. Now, he also brings up Colorado. That's a very different situation, Texter. That's a very different situation. That was a program that was completely bereft of anything resembling a roster that could play at the FBS level. And as far as USC, they're doing pretty good this year. Let's move on to our next one. How about Dave Canales for the Carolina Panthers?
Ooh, that one's we have to go there. That's a sore subject. It hits close to home, as you might say, Diesel. Dave Canales, in terms of welfare check, is he still home or is he close to being fired? I say he's at a 2 or 3 maybe of 10. Look, is there going to be pressure? Yes. Should he lose his job? No. But his owner is bat bleep crazy. Yeah. I say I'm going to land on 2 out of 10 right now.
I'm going to go a little higher than that.
Okay.
I'm going to go 4.
Ooh.
Only because it's Dave Tepper, right? He's going to say, Dave, I brought you in to fix this. Yeah. You are my not sure. I got this guy not sure, and he's going to fix everything. So now you brought this coach in. You've given him his first ever shot. He's been a quarterback whisperer everywhere he's been before that. And within 2 weeks, he's benched your number 1 overall pick. That was your decision, Dave Tepper. You wanted Bryce Young. A lot of people wanted Bryce Young. Let's not play revisionist history. Yeah. If Bryce Young hadn't gone number 1 to the Panthers, he would have gone number 2 to the Houston Texans. So let's not pretend like other teams didn't also love Bryce Young the year he came out in the NFL draft. But we know Dave Tepper is twitchy. And I would say any Carolina Panthers head coach is almost always at a 4 out of 10. Like, there's no comfort to be had there whatsoever when Tepper is your owner. Let's go back down to the state of Florida and to Gainesville and Billy Napier.
Well, this one's an easy one, right? I mean, is there any wrong answer here, Diesel, other than 10 of 10? I mean, can you possibly some way tell me I'm wrong here? I mean, I'd go 11 out of 10 if I could go 11, but the scale stops at 10. Billy Napier, I think, you know what? I want to say this. I will admit, I think I was wrong on something. I said a couple of months ago, you and I were sitting in these same chairs, these beautiful chairs that we have, these wonderful chairs. We were having the conversation of if Billy Napier could get fired maybe a month or so ago, mid-season. I said I don't think there's any way in where he gets fired mid-season. I think I was wrong on that. I think if he loses to Mississippi State, pack your bags. He's gone.
I think he's dead man walking already.
He is.
I think there's no chance in my mind that Billy Napier, because we know how tough that schedule is going to get, right?
God.
They're going to get blown out a lot this year. And the University of Florida already has the money. The boosters are already ready to go to pull that trigger and fire him. They're just waiting for the right guy. I guarantee you they're contacting Jimmy Sexton and all the biggest agents in college football head coaching, and they are just waiting for a yes from a big name splash hire that they hope can keep a couple of their guys around.
I wrote this down yesterday, and I want to talk about this real quick on this whole Florida situation, Diesel. Maybe a month ago, you and I talked about the portal window and the spring closing. You remember that? Mm-hmm. We talked about it not being a huge deal. However, I'll tell you why it might be a bigger deal than we made it. Ole Miss, a lot of people have linked Lane Kiffin to the Florida job. Well, I'll tell you why Florida is in a tough situation when it comes to hiring Billy Napier's replacement. Let's say, for example, you wanted Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss will be in the playoffs, right? You and I both think there'll be a playoff team in 2024. Ole Miss will be. The date of the first playoff game's December 21st. Mm-hmm. Signing day is December the 5th, the first Wednesday of December. The transfer portal window, which, by the way, is the only window of the year, also opens in December. So whether it's Lane Kiffin or any other coach, they're not going to leave before the season's over, right? They're not going to leave before the postseason. If he did go after the postseason, the cupboard would be bared. There'd be no talent. So it makes interesting when you look at this hire that to your point, it's a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
It makes it interesting because coaches who are in the playoffs almost are just a dead giveaway as a no.
So I find this one interesting. You didn't put this guy on your list, but I added him to your list. A guy that we very much thought was on the chopping block at the beginning of the season, depending on how it went. Mario Cristobal at Miami. Where is he now? Like, I know you beat Florida and you feel good about beating up on the little kid down the block, right? But you played Florida A&M and FIU and all these directional schools all over the state of Florida since. You're beating up on nobodies. Like, how much goodwill does that actually buy you as the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes? It can't be much, right?
It's a good question. Mario Cristobal, is he the best coach since sliced bread? The best thing since sliced bread? I don't think so.
Beginning of the season, I would have put him as a 4.
I'd have probably put him as a 4.5, 5, right? I would agree with you. However, winning cures all. And you're right. They've played the Sisters of the Poor, right? And their nephews and the nephews, and they're blind. However, they're winning, right? And as long as they're winning, I do believe that winning will cure all. So I don't think it started
as a 4. Where is it now?
2.5.
2.5.
Maybe even 2.
You think beating up on FAMU and Ball State drops the temperature of that seat?
I think so, man.
I mean, all it takes is a loss on the road Saturday against South Florida.
Oh, God.
Or a loss at home to Virginia Tech on September 27th
ask me again.
To raise that temperature right back up.
Ask me next Thursday. If they lose to South Florida, you're right. It'll be raised up.
I would say wait till they get to the meat of their schedule, but there is no meat of their schedule. They only play one more ranked team for the entire season. Let me rephrase that. They only play one ranked team the entire season, and that would be Louisville on October 19th on the road.
That's not good.
No. I mean, how much goodwill does beating up on horrible teams buy you?
That's like ordering a sandwich that you think is going to have a lot of meat, and it's just like the bun, and where's the meat?
What a flaccid schedule, honestly. All right, let's go to Arkansas. Sam Pittman.
I think Sam's done after this year. I think Sam Pittman's done. I don't think it's a mid-season ordeal, kind of like Billy Napier in Florida. Sam Pittman, I like Sam Pittman. How can you not like Sam Pittman? However, I believe the excitement's fizzled out. I believe the tenure – I do believe that Sam Pittman could still do some things this year to change my mind. However, with that schedule, good luck. I'm going to say Sam Pittman's at 7 out of 10, but at the end of the season, I'm not shocked with the Tyson money going and getting Cal for the basketball program. Like, they've got the funds. They've got the money, and Sam Pittman's not the answer.
Sam's gone. I know they like him. I know that he's a likable guy, but you got to win.
You do.
You got to win. You just got to do it. Texter says Florida stinks, but calling them the sisters of the poor is a bit harsh. Is it really, Texter?
I don't know.
Really? Explain to us why.
I don't know.
That's harsh. Are we talking about the same Florida Gators here?
They're bad.
Another texter says Lane Kiffin is not leaving Ole Miss. That's a terrible take. Did any of us say that he was gonna leave?
No, nobody said that.
What he said was, we've heard a lot of talk about it.
And here's why he won't.
Yes, exactly. Texter, comprehension is key. Don't hear a name and fly off the handle without understanding what it is you're flying off the handle about. How about Mike Houston at East Carolina was great. Great at James Madison when they were still FCS. Has not been able to turn around a second purple team, though.
You know what? We talked about Mike Houston yesterday. That's why I put it on this list.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I think he's a really good coach. Like, I think he would probably be considered, Diesel, for a lot of jobs in college football. However, if you can't take care of North Texas and Florida Atlantic and Temple and Tulsa when the time comes and you're not competing for an American championship, I do believe the pressure is there. I really do. And look, they lost App State by 2 points. So we'll see. I'll tell you this, though, and this is why I like this segment being weekly. This could change big time if they go knock off Liberty, right?
Right.
That'd be a big win. Right now, I have them at a 6. Is that too high?
I'm with you there because I read the East Carolina message boards after App State beat them last week. Because, I love to watch teams that App State beats melt down.
Implode.
And they hate Mike Houston. They can't stand. Oh, my God. Those fans cannot stand the sight of Mike Houston. Man. They say, why don't – they're picking apart everything. Like, why won't you look at the camera during the press conference, in the pregame interview? Why would you look at the camera? I mean, they're picking apart everything. They hate Mike Houston. I'd say he's probably sitting at a solid 8 right now. Beating Liberty, that's a team that Pirate fans feel like is very, very beneath them. They feel like everyone's beneath them at this point. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, East Carolina fans legitimately thought they were a shoe-in expansion candidate for the Big 12. Like, they thought they were there as a program. They're not a fan of what Mike Houston is doing. They don't think that there's a whole lot of hope for Mike Houston to fix things in Greenville, North Carolina. And lastly, Cole, let's go to Doug Peterson of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
This one's intriguing. Doug Peterson, I thought when they hired him, I was high on Doug Peterson. But I would say now with Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence, the start they've had, the way they imploded last season, and let's be honest, it was one of the worst implosions other than Philadelphia's last year in the National Football League. I'd say Diesel, his seat is hot, 6 out of 10. Trevor Lawrence is too good of a quarterback to be losing 2 in a row. I think there is some pressure on Doug Peterson.
There should be. I mean, he's a former number 1 overall pick. He's got all the tangibles. Doug certainly turned things around from the Urban Meyer experiment, but not as much as he should have, right? They were awful. They were awful under Urban. Doug Peterson has elevated things, but not enough. I'd put him at a 5.
Okay, I don't hate that.
Put him at a 5.
Needs to show something here soon. That's all I'm saying.
There's just such wild inconsistency with Jacksonville under Doug Peterson. They started off real strong a couple years ago, and then they imploded down the stretch.
All right, we're going to run to a break, but before we do, we will make time for Tom, who wants to talk some South Carolina Gamecock football. Tom, how you doing on this Thursday?
Boys, I couldn't be happier. Today's Thursday. Gamecocks play football in 2 days. I ain't got to work tomorrow, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet, okay? Don't play Sellers Saturday night. Let Robbie Ashford play, and Let's get to 3-1. I think we're going to win the game 49-10. It's going to be a great night in Columbia. I was going to go, but I had to help New Spring Church with a recruiting event this weekend up in the upstate. But Gamecocks are going to win. Still got a better record than Clemson. And Diesel, I got to say this about your App State Mountaineers tonight. Gio Lopez, you may not know the name now, but you will after the game. The South Alabama, whoever they are, is going to win tonight in a battle. I expect a lot of points. They scored 87 last week. We all know what happened to App State against Clemson, unfortunately. But it's going to be a great football game, a lot of points, and people will know who Gio Lopez is after the game tonight.
I'm not going to take that, Tom, from somebody who doesn't even know the mascot of the South Alabama Jaguars. By the way, they did it to Northwestern State. Before we even mentioned it on the show yesterday, Tom, I know you've never heard of Northwestern State, so you can't be gassing up.
They're in Louisiana.
You can't be gassing up a performance against Northwestern State, but I appreciate the call anyway.
They scored more points against Northwestern State than any FBS team since 1994. Wow. So that right there is impressive. And Gio Lopez can sling it. He's a lefty that can sling it, Diesel. And they got some good wide receivers. It's going to be a great football game if you love offense tonight.
No, I know. South Alabama has improved big time over the past 5 or 6 years. I mean, it wasn't but 5 years ago, the Sally Jags, as I like to call them, they were a laughing stock of college football. They were terrible, but they've had a couple of good head coaches roll through. They've got themselves a beautiful brand new football stadium down there. And, I like what they're doing down there. And as a matter of fact, our frequent guest of the show, Jake Crane, was a former coach at South Alabama. Not the head coach, but he was a position coach at South Alabama. He knows what he's talking about. Tom, we appreciate the call.
He said very clearly, Diesel. Did you hear that?
He's putting me on upset alert.
I like it. That should be a good one tonight, though, right?
Texter says that caller, Tom, projects his voice louder than Rob Brown. Could you imagine those two? Could you imagine being trapped in a phone booth with Tom and Rob together?
The phone booth would explode. It would literally explode.
Shatter the glass.
I'm excited now. Look, 5 minutes ago, I was not excited about Georgia, Southern, and App State.
Yeah.
But guess what? I am now.
South Alabama. Texter says resilient ignorance is that guy's personality.
Where did I get Georgia Southern from? South Alabama and App State. I wasn't excited about it, but now I am. I love Tom. Tom's something else. All right, Diesel. We I don't know if you remember this. Back in the summer, the dog days of summer, we talked about Clemson moving into the top 10. Right now, they're 21 in the AP poll. We decide next when the movement will come that puts the Tigers in the top 10. conversation, Diesel, back in the dog days of summer. And it's interesting because I believe that Clemson, at some point in the season, if they want to find themselves in the college football playoff, will have to sneak into that old top 10 that they're used to being in, right? That they used to find themselves in all the time. And not only the top 10, the top 4, or they used to find themselves. Right now, the Clemson Tigers are number 21 in the AP poll. The question is, to you as well as our Tolo, 71307, start your text with the word fan. At what point in the season, if at all, do we expect Clemson to move into the top 10? Because you and I both know 12-team playoff. That 12, we don't know for sure, but we think needs to be, the 12 will probably be highest ranked G5, right? Maybe 11 or 12, somewhere around in there. So Clemson's going to have to be in the top 10 if they want to find themselves in the playoff. Question is, when?
Yeah, so you want to roll down this schedule and maybe kind of predict where we think they'll be after beating these teams. Because you look down the schedule, and I don't see a losable game until you get to Louisville late part of the season. That's your probably first – that's your next decent test.
And as you go through the schedule, I also have the week-to-week schedule from other teams pulled up in the top 25, because for them to move up, somebody's got to fall, right?
Sure.
Somebody has to fall down, and right now they're 21.
There's always there's always going to be some movement, right? There's always going to be some chaos, especially in that 10 to 20 range.
Yeah.
That's where teams go to get beat, right? So this week they're taking on NC State. NC State hasn't looked good this year, and they don't have Grayson McCall this week. So I don't know that beating NC State, and I mean, sure, the way you beat them definitely matters, but we can't predict how we think they're going to beat. I think Clemson is probably going to beat NC State by 21, 3-touchdown win against a very depleted NC State team. So if they beat them by the predicted spread, I think Clemson probably moves up to like 18. I don't think beating NC State buys you a whole lot in the mind of the AP voters.
You know what? I also look at, because I agree with you, I don't think Saturday's game will be close. I also look at who's below them, right? Iowa State in the AP polls 20, Louisville's 19, Michigan 18, Notre Dame 17, LSU 16. For example, Iowa State has Houston this weekend. Houston's 1-2, haven't started Big 12 play yet. Not the best team out there anymore. They used to be, not anymore. Iowa State. What other teams ahead of Clemson is what I look at in terms of movement. Obviously, to your point, Clemson needs to win and look good doing so, but what teams do we see above Clemson, ahead of Clemson right now, that maybe we would consider a fraud? Maybe we would consider, hey, in the tough SEC, they're going to fall. I'll tell you, for example, Oklahoma, LSU, Diesel. Right now, in the AP poll, Oklahoma's 15, LSU's 16. One of those two schools, in my opinion, in the next 3 to 4 weeks is going to plummet.
Sure.
They're in the SEC. Oklahoma may be out of the top 25 in the next month.
Well, one of them, I mean, obviously one of them's got to, right. You're right. One of those teams is going to fall. And I'd be willing to bet at this point it's probably going to be LSU of those two if I had to pick.
Yeah, I mean, or both. Oklahoma State in the Big 12, Kansas State in the Big 12, Utah in the Big 12. 3 teams that are 12, 13, 14. Of the Big 12 teams, they're going to beat up on each other. They don't play each other right at the beginning of the season, or Big 12 play, rather. But I do think that it's still so early. And that's the question. A lot of people think, Clemson will be on the outside looking in and may not even make the college football playoff, may not even ever find themselves in the college football top 10 of the AP poll.
I think the only way for Clemson to guarantee they're in is to win the conference, right? You got to go win the conference championship game. Outside of that, even to leave it up to the voters, to leave it up to them to decide to put you in as an at-large without an ACC championship, I genuinely don't care if you run the table from here on out.
And that's where I go.
I think you're at risk, I should say.
No, I'm with you. So that's where I wanted to go next. If you don't win the conference, you have NC State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake, Virginia. Then things get a little tougher. Louisville, VT, Pitt, maybe. Then you have the Citadel in South Carolina. Would it be fair to say, Diesel, that when you look at Clemson's schedule, again, right now in the AP poll, they're 21. Would it be fair to say, even if Clemson wins out in the regular season and beats South Carolina, they still won't find themselves in the top 10? And the only way they do is exactly what you just said. They have to go win the ACC to find themselves in the top 10, which would be a big jump. 11, 12, 13, you win the ACC, all of a sudden you're all the way into what, 4? Conference champion, right? 3, 4, 5? So
I don't know that beating, and this is not meant to be a disrespect to South Carolina, I don't know that beating South Carolina at the end of the year is enough to squarely put you in the top 10, only because we know that Lenora Sellers has been a little banged up this year. Maybe that continues, maybe it doesn't. We know that they've got an incredibly difficult schedule ahead of them that is set up for South Carolina to lose a lot of football games.
Yeah.
So just by virtue of a depleted quarterback situation and a deceptively poor record, South Carolina will be a good football team this year, but I think they'll have, as they do, I think in more years than not, they have a deceptively bad record. Most of the time, they're not as inept as the record says they are. So I just don't think that the AP voters, who a lot of which, especially on the West Coast, the East Coast voters may know, right? They may have a good sense of who they think South Carolina is.
Yeah.
But the West Coast voters, all those ones from Boise, Idaho, and Washington and California, they don't really know who and what South Carolina is. So, I mean, they're not paying attention that you looked really good against LSU and still lost the game. All they'll know is you lost to LSU, or all they'll know is that by the end of the season, you're 6-6. So they're going to look at you as an average football team. But I think, Cole, they beat NC State, and that raises them to 18. And I know that there's going to be a lot of movement around here. So it's real difficult to predict a lot of that movement, but as it always churns, as it always is, I think beating NC State raises you to 18. Beating Stanford, you might get to 16. Winning at Florida State, that's not going to mean a whole lot to the AP voters. That's good for 15th. You win at Wake Forest, that's not going to help you a whole lot. That may move you to 14. Beating Virginia, that's not going to move you at all because nobody gives a rip about Virginia. And then I think beating Louisville at home might be the ticket to move you into the top 10. I think that's the first opportunity to get you into the top 10. And of course, it could happen before then just by virtue of other teams winning and losing around them. But you run the table, I don't think there's any chance until beating Louisville to get into the top 10.
Eric points out that Iowa State's playing Arkansas State this weekend, not Houston. I had the weekends. I was looking one weekend too far in advance. Thank you for that, Eric. They play Houston next weekend. You're right, Arkansas State and Iowa State this weekend. JB on the YouTube stream, Diesel, says they won't make the playoff. They'll be 10-2 going into the ACC title game. 10-2. Did he say 10-2? And lose to Miami and will be 10-3. I want to get the Mad Crabs points.
I like how JB
is
now a closet Gamecock fan.
Not a.
Oh God!
I just forgot his old name, Spur Daddy.
Spur Daddy. Yeah.
How did I forget Spur Daddy?
Yeah, I think JB. I think there's a real risk, maybe chance. There's a real chance that JB changes his handle back to Spur Daddy by the end of the season.
If they beat LSU, he would have.
Yeah, probably.
If they would have beat. Now I'll say this, JB. I don't agree. They'll be 10-2 going into the ACC title game. Who are those two losses? Louisville?
I think he's calling South Carolina.
Could be. I think I told somebody today before the show, I said if they played today, I think it'd be a good game. I really do. I think it'd be a good game if they played today. Madcraft, a 2-loss Clemson would make the playoff if they lose the ACC championship, but it's a decent game. I don't know that I agree with that. That's assuming they played an undefeated 1-loss Miami team. They have 2 losses, man. I see them on the outside looking in. Madcraft says if they play anyone else in the championship game and lose, then no. Well, they're going to play Miami. Miami plays nobody this year, so they're going to play Miami. If they make it there, they'll play Miami. JB says, no, I'm not a closet Gamecock fan. No change coming, brother. Georgia and my Gamecocks. What do you mean, Georgia? Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Is he spreading his allegiance around?
No, I'm sorry. Those were the two losses. So he's calling.
Okay.
He's saying they lost to Georgia, which they did, and they're losing to Carolina. Gotcha. How about that?
Interesting. Pac-Fan Shuff just got his upset pick challenge in. He's taking Michigan State over Boston College plus 6.5. Pac-Fan Shuff. I looked at that game. It's not a bad pick.
I don't like that.
It's not a bad pick. The problem is Michigan State's quarterback throws a lot of picks. So
then it'd be a good pick.
And he's on the road at a Bill O'Brien-led Boston College team. We'll see. I didn't feel confident enough to take that one, but I certainly looked at it. When we come back, Cole, let's take a look around the sports world, see what else is happening out there with our Daily Wires. That's coming up next. lot happening in the sports world. Let's see what's kicking out there. These are our daily wires.
But
The Braves broke their 3-game losing streak last night by beating the Reds 7-1. Braves will have Chris Sale on the mound today.
They won.
They won already.
2 in a row.
There you go.
15 runs
One
for
more.
the Bravos.
And that's called a winning streak.
Yeah, but not for the Braves.
It has happened before.
They won't win one more.
Thursday night football tonight on Prime. Patriots Jets 8:15. Jets favored by 6.
Give me Jets. You know what? I think I'm changing my mind. I think I'm going to go Jets do cover. I think I'm going Jets
covering as well. Prime time on ESPN. South Alabama at App State. Sold out home game in Boone. App State doesn't tend to perform very well in these biggest spotlight scenarios. In the past, they've always let me down in these games. That's what makes me nervous. I mean, Tom yelled in my ear and said South Alabama might get my App State Mountaineers tonight.
You know what? I think you're setting them up to have low expectations. That way, if they do disappoint, you're already there, right? I think you're preparing yourself.
I'm 40, man. I've reached that point in my life where I try not to let my team's wins and losses affect my mood.
Yeah, I know.
For more than 24 hours.
It's tough.
It's hard, man. It's called growth, okay? It's called maturity. The Yankees and Brewers have now both clinched playoff spots in Major League Baseball. The Guardians' magic number is 2 to clinch a playoff spot and 6 to clinch the AL Central. The Phillies' magic number for a playoff spot is 2 and 4 to clinch the NL East. The Dodgers' magic number is 3 to clinch a playoff spot and 7 to win the NL West.
You know, man, this time of year, yes, it's football season, but, there's nothing more fun than playoff baseball, and it sucks that the Braves suck. You know, what's frustrating is they win. I get more frustrated this season, Diesel, about the wins than I do losses.
Really?
Yeah, I'm more upset when they win big. Like today, they win 15
because you know how they can play.
It's like, what are you doing? Why are we winning today? It makes me so mad. I'd rather lose.
Staying with the Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani is close to a 50-50 season. He has 50 steals and 48 home runs. Go get it, Shohei. Just don't gamble on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Region play begins in high school football tomorrow for most of our area teams. You've made your picks. You can find them on thefanupstate.com. You can also go back and listen to a segment in the the 3 o'clock hour where we talked about a lot of these high school games. Get your more in-depth thoughts on the podcast, which you can find on thefanupstate.com. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts as well. Arthur Blank will enter the Atlanta Falcons Ring of Honor on Sunday night. They're giving everyone in attendance 2 free hot dogs,
this is great.
2 bags of chips, and unlimited soda in a free souvenir cup. If attendance is 60,000, that means 120,000 hot dogs for free, otherwise known as lunch for Joey Chestnut.
How cool is that, man?
Yeah.
I want to go. Just get 2 free hot dogs.
I mean, why has Dave Tepper not figured this out yet? Your team sucks. Throw some peanuts and Cracker Jacks at the fans. Make them feel something good about something with this team.
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
Dave, the team sucks, and you're still out there charging $20 for a beer. How have you not figured that out yet?
Diesel wants Dave to buy him some peanuts and Cracker Jacks.
Dave Canales was asked on Wednesday about trading Bryce Young. He said, that's not something we're really considering. We have a great situation with our quarterbacks right now. Really? No. And my guys have experience. We love where we're at. It's all hands on deck. That sounds like
we believe
Coach
you, Dave.
BS.
We believe you.
Horse, you know what, is what I have to say.
Okay, whatever you say.
Saturday's Southern Cal Michigan game will be USC's first visit to the Big House since 1958.
Wow.
We got to remedy that, right? Like, you got some great all-time matchups that we just don't get to see at home stadium. I love that we're getting back to home and homes and not so many of these neutral site games in neutered NFL stadiums. I'm all in on Southern Cal traveling to Michigan. Now let's just do the right thing and let both of them wear their colors, shall we?
Yeah.
Southern Cal in the red, Michigan in the blue. Come on. It would look great on television. And finally, Blake Shelton has been named as the guest picker at College Game Day when Tennessee heads to Oklahoma.
I like it. Blake Shelton guy. Not a big problem with that.
Okay.
It is time, Diesel, to talk to the head ball coach of the Furman Paladins. We do each and every Thursday right here on this show at 6 p.m. Clay Hendricks next. Furman fans, it is time, as we do every Thursday at 6 p.m. right here on the Fan Upstate. We talk Furman Paladins football with the head ball coach of the Furman University Paladins. Always a pleasure talking to Coach Clay Hendricks. And, Coach, I can imagine that this interview today that you're doing with us is a little bit more lighthearted, fun-spirited because of the big win you guys had on Saturday. Congratulations, Coach.
Well, thank you. You know, wins do have a way of doing that. And, a good win for us. I think we got a little better as a team, which is kind of our goal. And, so excited to go see what we can do this week against a really good opponent.
Coach, how much easier is it, would you say, to get your team focused following a win like that, or the first win of the season? I mean, talk to me about the personality of this team and maybe where their mentality was after the first 2 weeks and then after week 3.
Well, it's been kind of an interesting start to the year, certainly with the Ole Miss game, the way it went. And then I didn't feel like I knew a whole lot about our team after that game, other than they hung in there. We were a little better the next week, turned the ball over a bunch, and that's what really kind of ended up costing us. But I just, like I said, starting to get a little better, starting to show. I feel like really after 2 games, I feel like I can kind of measure maybe kind of who we are, what I think our strengths are, where our weaknesses are. And, we're a young group, and I started a true freshman last week. I guess he was the National Player of the Week for his first start, National Freshman of the Week for his first start. So that's a pretty good way to start it. But I know he's got some ability. He'll get better. He's made of all the right stuff. But this group, I tell you one thing that's been kind of fun about them is the younger group. They just kind of work. Don't seem to be too high or too low. And, as a coach, you kind of enjoy that.
Coach, you talk about starting a freshman, this team being young. For a young team to have to go on the road and have the start to the season that you guys did, to your point, it's tough to use that as a measuring stick. Now that you said you've learned a little bit about this team, what will Coach Clay Hendricks say about this Furman team that he likes, but also that he wants to see improvement on?
Well, I do think, I feel like, you're always talking about as a coach, you're trying to improve, weekly. I mean, you're trying to improve daily. And I do like that. I like their approach. Seem to be pretty locked in. It's in everything you do. It's in our weight room stuff that we do. It's in our meetings. And there's some talent. I think, an example, somebody told me the statistic last week from the 4-minute mark of the second quarter through the third quarter, we had more 50-yard plays than we had all of last season combined. And that was a really, really good football team we had, a year ago. But I think we're a little more explosive, and I can kind of see that. There's a lot of details we got to do better. So those are things I'm seeing, and again, and then the flip side is just a lot of still making a lot of mistakes, which a little bit's to be expected, but it's our job as coaches to get them beyond that. I think we're playing really good defense. I think we're a team that's got to learn that we got to ride those guys a little bit. Don't put them in bad spots. I think they're going to give us a chance to win every game. Really from here on out, if we'll continue to do those things.
Well, Coach, one good strategy, especially to minimize the importance of third down efficiency, is don't get to third down. Obviously, when you're throwing the ball for 9.7 yards per pass, you don't get to a whole lot of third downs, which, I'm sure you were 3 of 10, not particularly great last week on that particular metric. But again, you'll take it when you're putting up 48 points. What did you say to your quarterback, Trey, heading after that game to try to keep him grounded after such a breakout performance?
I don't really feel like I had to say a lot because there's a lot of things he still could do better. He's a pretty mature kid, really likable, good teammate. So I just hadn't sensed that at all. We got to be better. We're still not running the ball well enough to suit me, and a lot of it's details. We had a little more of an inexperienced offensive front, some short yardage situations. Really we just made some mistakes, turned the guy loose at the point of attack. And, it's one thing if a guy's just beating you. It's another thing when we don't do what we're supposed to do. So, a lot of those non-third down conversions were because of that. And again, I think the vast majority of that stuff is fixable. So those are the things we've tried to focus on. And, what do we do well, and then what do we got to fix, and just stay the course. I think we feel pretty good about the plan we have in place, the system. Our coaches do a great job, and so we just got to stick with it.
He is the head football coach at Furman, Coach Clay Hendricks. Coach, you just said a few moments ago that you want to see the run game improve. Is it about the guys, Gavin Hall, Grant Robinson? Is it about them getting better as a whole, or is it more on the offensive line? And when you talk about the run game from a Clay Hendricks standpoint, from a Clay Hendricks point of view, would you prefer it to be running back by committee or just have one guy carrying the load?
Well, I think we've got enough. We've got 4 guys that we feel pretty good about. I'm not sure you can play 4 guys. I think maybe at some point we feel like we got the 2 to give us the best chance. I'm still trying to figure some of that out. Gavin Hall, the freshman, came along and has done some really good things. I think it's a combination of all those factors. And again, I think so much right now what's hurting us a little bit in the run game is just a little bit of the attention to detail. Back's not on the right path. It's footwork, it's basic fundamental stuff, which, is not going to get fixed overnight. But we should be progressing, a little bit better pace than I'm probably happy about right now. But, so again, it's a work in progress. I think you got to always be looking at what you're asking your guys to do, keeping it simple enough where your guys can keep playing fast. And again, our guys are approaching it the right way. So I feel like we've got good players back there, and, we're throwing the football pretty well. I think if we can get the other part going, it's just going to make us that much better.
Coach, going into that game last week, Stetson had scored an awful lot of points in their first 2 games of the season, 41 and 35 respectively. I asked this question of a guest a week or 2 ago about what Clemson did to App State in that game, and I asked him to kind of give me a pie chart and the percentages of scheme, talent, and execution. What do you think it was, the percentage-wise, of those 3 factors that led to you and your defense really shutting Stetson down?
I'm not sure I'm smart enough to answer that question, but well, what's funny, the original, the opening drive, we got a pick pretty early. We went down and scored, and we had a drive with, we got 2 roughing the passer penalties, which I wasn't happy about. I wasn't happy about the call. We ended up blocking a field goal, and then, their other score was late in the game. Quite honestly, we played with a bunch of guys in the fourth quarter, probably that were Stetson last week for us. And the next thing you know, they're in the game playing Stetson. So, but it was a great learning experience for them. They were a spread it out, throwing around bunch. We knew that. They were getting it out of their hand quick. I think we're a pretty good pass rushing team. And it was just hard to get there because the guy was getting it out of his hand so fast, which, I think that helps us too when we do that. So, our philosophy is always make them one dimension, don't allow them to run it. And they weren't really able to late in the game. They got a few runs, but, if we can do that and make them one dimensional and get after them, then, that's going to give us a chance.
Coach, talk to us a little bit about this William and Mary team, highly ranked, top 15. Yeah, I'm sure you've watched a bunch of film this past week with them in Wofford, which was a 1-score game on Saturday, a very close game where Wofford had a chance. And William and Mary came out on top. What does William and Mary concern you about from a Furman standpoint?
Well, they're kind of the opposite of us. From a standpoint, they're a really old football team, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. Up front, couple of good running backs. Quarterback's been around a long time. He's an athlete. He's a true dual threat guy. And, it's pretty clear they want to run the ball. That's who they are. They're certainly capable in the passing game. Most of it's play action. They try to get the quarterback on the move a bunch. I really think this game will come down to who runs the ball the best. Because they've been pretty good at it. So I think that's the number one thing that concerns me. They're a lot like us. They're a similar school, have a similar type kid that they recruit. I think they're kind of like us in the fact that they don't want to beat themselves. That's a big important thing to us. But I really think it's going to be a couple of those factors. It's going to be who can run the ball the best. you know, and who can take care of the ball? Who's going to win the turnover margin? You know, they've been pretty good at taking care of it. You know, we went from 4 turnovers to none, you know, and then we went from getting none to getting 3. So hopefully that trend continues. We've been a pretty good team in that area. And so I think that those will be kind of the side factors in this game.
Coach, I want to ask your general thoughts. I don't know if your team has been called with a targeting penalty this year, but I'm sure it's happened at some point over the last couple of years. Now that we're really a few years into getting after that infraction in a big way, there's a debate between, you know, the letter of the law versus the player's intent when a foul like that is called. I believe it should be reviewable or even reversible for severity, intent, what the target did to maybe cause such a penalty or such a bang play to happen. What are your opinions on whether or not there should be adjustments to that targeting rule?
Well, I think they've continually adjusted it. It's probably in the best place it's been in right now. You know, once they've gone to the true crown of the helmet, or I guess now the intent of the launching. And I saw one the other night that I thought was a target, and then they didn't because he said he didn't launch. I don't know. You know, it's anytime you leave it in somebody's hands to make a decision like that, it's stuff is really no different than a holding call. But the penalties are much more severe as far as what can happen. So I think I don't know. I think they've got a better handle on it. You know, I literally got a video yesterday from our conference officials who are governed by the SEC, and the whole video was about the leaping, you know, that we all saw, the penalty. And so now they're adjusting the leaping penalty on the block punt, I guess, that South Carolina had against LSU. So I don't know, it's kind of forever evolving. You know, I'm a big fan, and I don't know why it's this way, but I still don't understand why there's not college football officiating rather than conference officials, and just take all the conferences out of it. You know, it's just always been crazy to me. You go into a stadium playing somebody who's paying their officials. I mean, that's just the way it's set up. And I just don't understand that, you know. And but somebody's telling me that the conferences don't want to lose control of that. So, but I don't really know what that means. But I think the targeting is in obviously the best place it's been in a while, or since it all came about.
Coach Clay Hendricks joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. Coach, when you look at this schedule, you know, I find it very fascinating to see how other teams in the conference schedule their games with big teams like you guys had against Ole Miss. Do you prefer the way that Furman has it this year, where you had Ole Miss out of the gate and a few games before you get into SoCon play, or the way William and Mary has it, where they've already played 2 SoCon games and Furman will be their 3rd?
Yeah, and, you know, they're not even in our conference.
Right.
So, you know, I think each year's a little bit different. Obviously this year, with the youth of our football team, I probably would have not have preferred that game to be the first game. And then I think Ole Miss is its own little anomaly this year too. I mean, they've been good, but I think they're kind of freakish talent-wise this year. So that probably wasn't. But we got it behind us. But I've actually liked this year because the young group we've had 4 non-conference games leading into our. You know, we have our conference opener next week here versus Sanford. And that part I kind of have liked, because that's kind of what we've been shooting for, because the other stuff matters, but it doesn't matter, you know, once you start conference play. So, I think each year's a little different. You know, we get caught up. We've never played one of those end of the year FBS games. We'll actually play Clemson next year, the last game of the season. I'm not a big fan of that. I think we do have a couple. I think Mercer this year plays Alabama the last game. And then when our conference allows that to happen, it creates kind of unusual, you know, you may play an early conference game, or it may force somebody to have a bye at the end of the year. And I think last year we beat Chattanooga to win the conference championship in week 9. Week 10, they were open. Week 11, they went to Alabama. You know, and as a coach, I don't think that's where I'd want to be. They end up getting into the playoffs, but I think each year is a little different. But the problem is our schedules are set so far in advance. You know, we're not like basketball. they could call today and say, hey, let's play Monday through Saturday next November, and you could play any of those days. Well, we can't do that. Even I found people that want to play, but you can't make the dates work because of the bye, the open dates and such. And then, you see Wake Forest paying Ole Miss almost $1 million not to play. So that's probably the situation you want to be in. Somebody will pay you a bunch of money not to play.
Coach Clay Hendricks, head coach of the Furman Paladins, joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Coach, I think I've asked you this question once or twice in the past, but I want to get your updated 2024 thoughts on this. I'm looking at the FCS top 25 right now, and I'm seeing so much of this power in the division moving up there to the Pacific Northwest. You got the Dakotas, the Montanas. Idaho has all of a sudden found something since they've dropped back down to the FCS level. You got to kind of go down the list a little bit before you find teams here in the Southeast that are making a run possibly at the top 10. William and Mary is there. Mercer is there. Who do you think out of your conference, out of the Southern Conference this year on a surface level? Because I know you haven't had, the opportunity to prep for every single one of those teams. Who do you think out of the Southern Conference probably has a really strong chance to make a deep run this season?
Well, I don't know what's changed a lot since preseason predictions. Other than you look at a Chattanooga who was picked to win the league. Well, who they opened with? They went to Tennessee, who might be the best team in the country. Then they turned around and had to play another FBS game, play Georgia State, who just beat Vanderbilt, and then they played Mercer last week, who was one of the best teams in our league, I think. And they lose a close, not low-scoring game. So they're 0-3, but are they really that bad? I don't think they are, and then I think Mercer, and they played a non-scholarship team. They played a not very good team, and then they went to Chattanooga. One went to Chattanooga being really confident. One of them didn't have a lot of confidence. So I don't know. I think until you get into conference play, it's probably not going to matter. I think the other thing, a lot of those teams don't play SEC Powers as their FBS game. I'd love to be playing a few of the MACs. And a few of these other, you feel like from a matchup standpoint. So much of it's about getting some confidence. And I promise you that set us back a little bit, just the lack of confidence we had to start the year. So I'm hoping we're kind of trending in the right direction. But I just think once the conference play starts, it's all going to sort itself out.
Coach, we appreciate your time as always. Best of luck on the road, and we'll talk to you again next week.
That'd be great. Appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. That's Coach Clay Hendricks. Always a pleasure having him on, as we do each and every Thursday, Diesel, at 6 p.m.
Yes, sir. When we come back, Cole, this one might ruffle a couple of feathers, and I'm not even talking about you South Carolina Gamecock fans. You always hear that saying when these programs are good, college football is better.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you 10 teams. I want you to do the same that I think fall into that category. When these teams are great, college football is better. And I'm going to give you 10 more big-time programs that I say, doesn't really matter if they're good or not. Doesn't affect college football on the whole. That's coming up next on the Fan Upstate. Cole, you ever have a segment idea that you know is going to piss some people off?
Just about once or 6 times a day.
Like, I got a feeling that this one is going to elicit a couple of phone calls late here in the show, as this is usually, as people are starting to wind down, go to dinner. Maybe some of you are on your way out to dinner. Well, guess what? I might say something to you that's going to ruin your night. I really think I might. Cole, you know that saying, if this team is good, college football is better for it.
Yes, I do.
I'm gonna give you. So if there's teams that make college football better when they're good, there's also teams that are good that it doesn't really matter on the whole to college football if they're good or not, right? It stands to logic that is the case. So I'm gonna give you 10 teams that I think fully fall into that category of when these teams are good, college football is better for it. And then I'm going to give you 10 big brands that I think, on the whole, nationally, it doesn't particularly matter if that team is good or not.
Okay.
How about that?
I'm ready to read and react.
There you go. Number 1, Texas.
Terrible for college football, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, no, it's great for college football, right? It's a huge market. It's got to be the hungriest market for football in America, Texas.
It's hard for me to think of 1 or 2 or 3 other schools, Diesel, that have more of an impact. I just tell you this, man. I remember Vince Young and watching those national championships.
That's the game that made me a college football fan.
Right. Him again and Reggie Bush, right? Like, I love Texas being a part of college football. So I'll agree with you. I'll even go a step further and say you might have a fantastic list, but I'll say Texas, they mean more to college football than a lot of others, even Alabama.
And they've been down bad for a long time.
And by the way, Texas is back.
Yeah, and they're back. Well, they're not back until they win something. You gotta win something before you're back. Just getting in the room doesn't necessarily make you back. Fair. So I'm gonna run through these a little bit faster because it's easy to justify all of these. Okay, so here are my 10 that need to be good for college football to be good: Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Miami, Oregon, Southern Cal, LSU, Tennessee, and Michigan.
Okay,
those are my 10.
I'm going to push back on Ohio State.
Okay.
I think
it doesn't matter to college football if Ohio State's good.
I don't think so.
Really?
Diesel, I think the entire country hates Ohio State.
I know, but that's what makes them important to college football. Everyone hates them. They're smug asses. They got so much. It's a huge school. It's gigantic. They got more money.
They do.
I mean, Ryan Day is as elite gets, and their fan base still hates them.
Because he couldn't beat Michigan several times in a row. Look, I know they're elite. I know they have a fantastic fan base. And I'm going to, we have a ton of Ohio State Tolos here in the upstate. I'm going to piss them off. That's okay. I don't think they mean as much to college football as other teams.
OH, more like, oh no.
Right. I mean, I'll just tell you this. Of the teams you gave, and by the way, I like your list. I didn't see Clemson on that list, but I like the list. Texas, I can't argue with Ohio State over Texas, Georgia, Alabama. The only thing that I could say is maybe Ohio State means more to college football than Tennessee. Maybe they do. Tennessee may be the only team on the list. And I know Tennessee has that old mystique, with Peyton Manning, and they do mean a lot. Oregon, the Nike money, without the Nike money, what's Oregon? Maybe I'm wrong there, but maybe Oregon just bought their way.
But you can't take the money away because it's there.
But they're frauds.
Yeah,
they're frauds. I don't like Oregon. Never have.
So I'm glad you pointed that out, Cole.
Okay.
That one particular school was not on my list. This is my list of 10 schools, 10 programs that I feel like it doesn't really matter to college football, Tyler, if these teams and programs are not elite. Penn State, Clemson, Oklahoma, they are very close to being on the list of teams that need to be good for college football to be good. Ole Miss, Utah, Notre Dame, Florida State, Nebraska, Texas A&M, and Washington.
That's good. Madcraft chimed in on the YouTube stream and said Notre Dame and Nebraska. Diesel.
Well, okay, Madcraft, if you want to add Notre Dame and Nebraska to the list of 10 teams that have to be good to make college football great, we're only going with 10. You can't expand this thing to 12. We're not doing conference expansion on this thing or playoff expansion on this thing. You got to take 2 of them away, Madcraft.
I agree with that. I would say
I don't think the college football world misses Nebraska all that much.
No, they don't. I'm with you on Nebraska. However, I do think they miss Notre Dame.
No, they don't.
I think
Nobody
they do.
likes it. No,
I think they do.
I think you're crisscrossing the wires here with Ohio State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame gets this like ridiculous benefit of the doubt every year. They screw it up every year. You lost to NIU and Marshall in the past 3 years at home.
No, I'm not.
And then you get your ass handed to you in the playoffs every year. College football doesn't need Notre Dame.
Well, I don't think the results, I'll say this, I don't think the results of them losing these past few years have anything to do with their brand in terms of college football needing them. They have choked in small games, and they have allowed these small opponents like NIU to beat them. I don't think that affects the conversation of college football needing them. I do think Notre Dame makes college football a better place. And I don't know that it has as much to do with the recency bias in terms of what have you done for me lately. I don't have on your teams that doesn't matter list, I don't have a ton of problems with Ole Miss. Oklahoma, I'm glad you put a star there. Maybe
they're on the short list, the waiting list to get in.
I think so. That Red River rivalry special, man. I went to it when I was in Texas. And the Cotton Bowl, downtown Dallas, Diesel, those two fan bases absolutely hate one another. I mean, hate each other.
You think they're terrible people just because of what color T-shirt they wear.
It's tough. I'm glad you made the list 10 because it's tough to have 10 and not 12 or 14.
Yeah. Well, if you do that, if you expand it that much, then
nobody matters.
It takes the conversation away, right?
And nobody matters because it's watered down. The only thing that I still have a problem with Oregon. I still have an issue with Oregon being on the list. And maybe it's an issue of them not having the history that other programs have. Maybe that's the problem. But for whatever reason, I think on my list, I would take away Oregon and I would take away the Buckeyes. Get rid of Ohio State.
Because you got a hatred for Ohio State. This is your own personal bias, and that's what confirms that it's real.
Nothing to do with what he hates. Zero.
Yeah.
Nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Penn State's interesting. I think Penn State's kind of on that gray area line, but I'd agree with you that I put them in the doesn't matter category. I'm going to take Ohio State out. I'm going to take Ohio State and Oregon out. I'm going to put Notre Dame and Oklahoma in. So I'm with you on the
Notre Dame and
Georgia.
Oklahoma in.
Yeah, I'm going Texas, Georgia, Bama, Notre Dame, Miami, Oklahoma, Southern Cal, LSU, Tennessee, Michigan being the top 10 teams that need to be.
So you, as a Clemson Tiger fan, agree with me that college football doesn't really need Clemson to be great?
Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think they've had enough. Like you have to put some history in this thing, right? Like I had a national championship in 1981, but when I put together this list of teams that make the sport better, I'm thinking of teams that have had a rich tradition, rich history, and I know Clemson, speaking of just Clemson itself, they have a nice history and tradition. That's fine, but in terms of the entire nation, people don't think of Clemson when they look at the history of college football in the United States. They just don't.
Let me defend myself on adding Oregon, because Oregon was that first team that started adding the visual element, the flash, the flair, the swag, the
yellow.
Everybody look at us. We're changing our uniforms every single week. I think they've been, even though they haven't won national titles, I think they've been massively impactful on the game of college football. And, it is a very big regional chunk of the country to say to add Oregon in there. So that's why I'm saying Oregon. I think they mean a lot more than you think to college football.
Yeah,
but you didn't push back on Southern Cal.
Didn't push back. Oh no,
didn't
Southern
push back
Cal,
on LSU. You didn't push back on Michigan or Miami.
It's hard. 10. I told you 10's hard. 10's hard.
Tough.
I'm telling you, I understand that I took Ohio State out, but I'll also say, look, you can't have Michigan without Ohio State. You got to have both. So I'll put Michigan, I'll put Ohio State back in because they have to, right? If you're going to have one, you got to have the other. They both have to be in there. So I'll take Oregon out. I'll sub them for Oklahoma. How about that? I like your list. I'll take Oregon out. I'll put Oklahoma in. Washington, Nebraska. Nobody alive remembers Nebraska. Sorry,
right, nobody cares. Nobody really cares if Penn State's not, because you've always been an also-ran. You've always been third place, right? You've always been competing for fourth place in the conference, so you don't get shut down. Let's go to the phone lines real quick and bring on Johnny, who's been hanging on the line. Thank you for your patience. You've been on for an awful long time. The floor is yours, Johnny.
Thank you, guys. So, a little segment y'all had earlier got me fired up. Great show so far.
Thank you.
But Clemson, top 10. I got a better chance of going to the gas station down the road, buying a scratch off and hitting $100,000 than Clemson does making top 10. I'll give you this. They'll win against NC State. They'll look good against NC State. They'll look good. They'll beat Stanford because that's not a football team. And then I'll tell you where the wheels fall off. The wheels start to fall off in Tallahassee, Florida.
Oh, my God.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you why. It's the perfect trap game. They're going to be riding high. DJU, he's heard the talk. He's going to want to win that game more than any game on the schedule. And Florida State is desperate to turn the season around, and that's where Clemson gets upset. Wheels fall off there.
Johnny, you want to make a bet?
We'll get to that. Louisville is just a better football team. Yeah, it just is. I think Jeff Brom's got an overall better football team right now. And South Carolina has
So you're calling for the crash and burn down the stretch, Johnny.
South Carolina will beat Clemson this year. As long as Lenoris is healthy and playing that football game, South Carolina will beat them. And Clemson will finish with 4 losses, and there will be some real talk if Dabo Swinney is still the man for the job. It'll be a little warm.
This segment should be renamed, Johnny, this segment should be renamed What You Thinking and What You Drinking, because you're definitely drinking if you think Clemson's going to lose to Florida State.
Oh, it's going to happen. But congratulations to Clemson. They might win the Cheez-It Bowl. We'll see.
Are we sure that Johnny is not Tom? Just calm down a little bit. You tuckered yourself out and called back in.
What? No. What's the bet on the Florida State game?
I'll bet you. You name it. They're not losing to Florida State this year. They're not. What do you want? You name it.
What do I get?
$20.
$3?
$20.
$20? We'll do it.
$20.
$20 straight up. Straight up.
I say Clemson wins, Johnny. You pay me $20. Florida State wins. I pay you $20.
We'll figure it out. We got you. I'll do it.
Figure it out. Terms are. Do both sides agree to this?
I agree.
Oh yeah.
I don't know that this is legal, but
there's a lot of tomahawk chopping. My dang uncle's a booster for Florida State, and I'm going to call him about halftime, and he's already going to have all the drinks ordered in the champion section ready to go because he's going to be partying at halftime because that's how big Florida State's going to be up.
Thanks, Johnny.
Booster, more like a buster for Florida State. Good God.
Did we just make a monetary bet on there?
I'm not sure. Nobody, I don't think it's legally enforceable.
I don't know. Nobody heard that.
It's a gray area for the FCC.
Sorry.
Fat Page says this guy is smoking crack on the text line. 71307, by the way.
Remember that
conversation never happened.
Remember that?
Oh, it was so good. What was he calling? High school girls soccer or something?
Calling the soccer moms and
he was saying, "Look at her over there. She looks like she's got a lot of attitude." Or something.
That was early back when we started the show. Like what? April, May?
Oh, that might be one of my favorite hot mic moments of all time.
Oh, it's incredible.
I just want to do a header off the top of the press box.
Man,
it's too low. It would kill me.
Good God, man.
Unfortunately, the press box is too low. It wouldn't kill me. Those were real words spoken from that guy.
That guy needs to be employed and a high-ranking official at Barstool now because he would be excellent.
I thought you were going to say he needs to be in the Hot Mic Hall of Fame.
Well, he is now.
That's incredible.
Medal stand at least, but he's in the Hall of Fame. That is for sure.
All right, one more to go. We'll revisit Andy Dalton, Raiders. Few days from now, it's getting closer for the Red Rifle. How we feeling? How you feeling next? So, Diesel, I was going to talk about Andy Dalton here, but, in radio, sometimes you just you pivot, right? And Andy Dalton, the Panthers aren't any good. We've talked about him enough today. We'll talk about him. We'll get back to him tomorrow. They'll still be here tomorrow. So, I'm going to tell you, getting into a little bit of personal life, I'm going to tell you what I've had to start adjusting to today. As of today, I don't know if you know much about my driving, but I'm a little bit of a, what do they call it? On the offense, right? Rather than on the defense.
Reckless?
I wouldn't use the R word, but on the offense.
You could fit right in on the Georgia football roster?
Maybe. So I speed a little bit. And please, if you're listening and you are in a white and black or a silver and a white, please don't, judge me for this. But I do have a tendency sometimes to speed and go a little fast.
Lead foot.
I have a lead foot. So I signed up with a new insurance provider today for my car insurance, okay? Great, by the way, and fantastic customer service. Shout out USAA. Free shout out, free sponsorship. Have my grandpa's in the military, so if you're family members in the military, right, you can get USAA.
It's a crummy commercial.
I should get paid for it and be a lot better. So here's the deal. Here's the dilemma. Here's where Cole is now entering a struggle in his life. They made me download an app. They said, hey, here's your insurance. It was a great rate. Saved some money. Bundled, right? Got like a couple different types of insurance, bundled it up into a monthly price, and it's a good deal. So I'm now paying this amount, Diesel, for car insurance. However, this app that I have dictates if the rate goes up or down in like 90 days. I don't know if you've ever had experience with these kind of apps before, but it basically monitors you when you drive. It's called Safe Pilot. And I have today, mind you, I haven't driven a ton today, but I've already had 6 events today. 6. I grabbed my phone. I don't know how it does, but it can tell when you pick your phone up out of the cup holder. If it's laying down and you pick it up, it says event phone usage, phone detected. I also was going over the speed limit. And I've had 3 drives since I got this policy around lunchtime today, maybe. I've had 3 drives. Duncan to Malden. They're considering this Malden for whatever reason. It's not. But it was a 15-mile drive, and I had 3 events on the one drive. So my big dilemma is, my big issue is, I'm now being monitored in how I drive with this, my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to have to make a severe adjustment.
Or change your policy.
I don't know if there's any changing. I think I might be stuck like Chuck.
Oh, you're going to have to slow the hell down.
I'm going to have to slow down.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
I mean, this is terrible.
Because you're not going to get anywhere fast anymore.
This is absolutely terrible.
I would be great at that. Number 1, because I drive like a grandpa. Number 2, because my phone goes into my glove box. I hook it up to my aux cord into my glove box. Well, it's the USB that goes into the back of my car stereo. It routes into the glove box. So once I put it in the glove box, I don't have to touch it. And
well,
my
nice.
my vehicle really struggles going over 70 miles an hour. So
you don't have to worry about
I don't have to worry about it.
Maybe that's what I need. I need a governor on my car.
You just need a slow vehicle. Get a slow car that you can try to drive fast, but really won't let you.
DB says, that's awesome. You have USAA, best insurance ever. Another free ad. May not be the cheapest, but service is great. Just use that app for a bit. JD said Progressive did this too. Oh gosh, what was it called?
I'm surprised, because they got those things that you can like plug into the little thing under your dash.
Yeah.
I forget what they call it, but it's the connection to the computer. I'm surprised. No. I'm surprised that like that didn't become more of a thing. So like you can essentially choose to be monitored to slow you down to get a better insurance rate.
So I'm with you. I'm just telling you, this might be.
Thank you, Dan. The OBD
Dan's always on it, man.
He's a smart guy.
He says, by the way, you can't get out of the program, delete the app. I don't think you can do that. I don't think that's allowed. I'm just telling you, the big dilemma is now. I'm going to have to make a major revision, a major change on how I drive. And
so how does it? When does it dock you? If you go 10 over, does that pop as an event?
I think it should be more like 30.
If you're doing 75 and a 65, does it pop you, or does it make you wait till you get to like 80?
So if 85? You see me going super slow down the interstate, now you know why.
I'm so sad.
It's
for
a sad day.
Yeah.
It
You
really
have to
is.
detune the engine, take a few of the hamsters off the wheel. Thank you for listening today. Wire to Wire, you Tolos. Show number 124 is in the books. We'll be back to do it again tomorrow.